am going to call this meeting of the Isla Vista Community Services District Board of Directors to order. I'd like to announce that the meeting is being recorded, and let's do roll call.
Director Brandt.
Here.
Dr. Freeman. Here. Dr. Hobart.
Here.
Dr. Sebos.
Here.
Dr. Top.
Here.
Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the Chumash people who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Chumash elders, past, present, and future, who call this place, Anascoyo, the land that Isla Vista sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Chumash community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. And I'm going to note for the record that Director Blatt has joined us. Okay, we're going to move to consent agenda. Any items to be pulled?
I'll move approval of the consent agenda. I'll second.
Motion by Topliff, second by Sebos. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda? Seeing none, let's do a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, now we're going to move to the public comment period. This is the time for any member of the public to speak on any item that is not on today's agenda. We'll have public comment on each of the items as we go through them in just a moment. The board will not take action on any item that's not on today's agenda. Is there any general public comment today? Go ahead.
Like stand here. Hi, my name is Ella. I'm a senior at IVCSD and I live right over there in Isla Vista, 3-minute walk away. Sorry, I was a little late. I'm here both to commend the community efforts of the Isla Vista Community Services District, as well as discuss some troubling trends I saw over the weekend with the law enforcement. So for starters, I wanted to thank you guys. My friends and I felt so overwhelmingly safe and protected because of the efforts of the Community Services District. We were provided with a care package that had things like Narcan, test strips, Gatorade. There were water stations so we could get water as we were walking around. And there was the Isla Vista Festival, which had food, water, ice cream, a little painting station, and just overall welcomed people who needed a respite from the parking. There was also the recovery center, which was amazing. Just having a safe place for people who had maybe had a bit too much so they could calm down in a safe place without clogging up our healthcare systems was invaluable. And overall, these efforts worked. They helped to reduce hospitalizations and we had no overdoses this year, which is amazing. So thank you guys. However, this was contrasted by what I feel were overly punitive measures by the police. My community is not made safer by men with guns. My community is made safer by awareness of the community and efforts to protect us. On Saturday, I saw many people, most of them young women wearing only bathing suits, being detained and arrested by police. These were not dangerous or belligerent people, nor were they the men who were victimizing, targeting, and harassing these women. These were just women who had had too much to drink. And as a woman myself, I cannot imagine how terrifying and demoralizing and traumatizing it must have been to have been wearing only a bathing suit, to have been sat down on the curb wearing handcuffs, restrained by men with guns. This does not make us safer. This only makes us afraid. This overwhelming crackdown that we saw over the weekend, especially the suspension of the restorative justice program, a program which exists to make sure that young people who make mistakes in college don't have criminal records following them for the rest of their life. This does not protect us. This does not make us safe. It only punishes and scares us. The crackdown also encourages people to pregame harder and to potentially accept substances from strangers. If we know that we will be arrested for so much as having a closed beer at the age of 21 while walking through the streets, that means people will pregame harder. We will consume higher quantities of alcohol in a shorter period of time and then go out onto the streets. Or if somebody offers something to us, we might be more willing to take it. This does not make us safer. The problem of Deltovia should be addressed from a perspective of harm reduction, as was done by the Isla Vista Community Services District. The resources poured into the extensive, overwhelming, and unnecessary police force does not make us safer and would have been so much better served bolstering the existing wonderful effects and initiatives provided by this forum. The overwhelming presence of the police only causes fear, and if the goal on Saturday was to protect and serve, that goal was not met. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. I will also share, I wanted to let you go through your comment. We do have an item on our agenda, item 4.3, the Spring Festival and Deltopia debrief. So if others are here with comments about that, I ask that you hold those comments to that. Thank you for your comments. Okay, any other comments on items not on the agenda? Anything on Zoom? Okay, we are going to move to the first item, which is the introduction of Lieutenant Joe Schmidt. And Lieutenant Schmidt has been newly assigned to the Isla Vista Foot Patrol Commander and Chief Lieutenant position. I actually don't know exactly what the formal title is, but we wanted to invite you here, give you the chance to just speak to the board a little bit about your background, and thank you for your service.
Well, I'll introduce him if I can. My successor here. So hello, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Garrett Slime, I'm the outgoing lieutenant for Isla Vista Foot Patrol. And I'm excited to be here tonight to introduce Joe. Joe and I have been partners for 20 years, and we're just one academy class apart from each other. Joe started at the Sheriff's Office in 2005 and has held a wide variety of assignments, Colita Patrol, Isla Vista Patrol, also was a sergeant here in IV. We were sergeants together out here actually in 17 and 18. Special Investigations Gang Enforcement, SWAT team leader, and Criminal Investigations Division, which is our detectives. And Joe was actually the lead detective on the 2014 mass murder investigation and everything that came out of that. Joe's biggest bona fides coming into Isla Vista is that he's gaucho. And he graduated from IVCSD with a degree in sociology in 2001, am I right? 2001. After moving down here, he was a former Isla Vista resident, met his wife here, and is very much like, I don't know anyone in the department who loves Isla Vista as much as Joe Schmidt does. And so this couldn't be a better transition for me to pass it over to him. So with that, Joe, I'll let you say anything you'd like to say.
Thank you for that. It's an honor for me to be here. I had a great assignment before I was assigned here. And last week was my first week. And I told my bosses that the only place I want to go is Isla Vista. And I have a deep connection to this community. I lived here for 5 years. And most of the most important parts of my life have touched this community, from being a student to finding my wife, to living here for 5 years, and then working here as a deputy sheriff, as a sergeant and now a lieutenant. And then obviously the mass murder that happened in 2014. That wasn't just an impact on me as a deputy sheriff, but as a former resident of this amazing community. And I was actually living in Isla Vista 2 blocks away when the mass murder happened in 2001. And I never say the suspects' names, but that had a profound effect on me as well. And it still does to this day. So to say I have a deep connection to this place is an understatement, and I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me to this meeting. I look forward to working with everybody here.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Lieutenant Schmidt. And I know that all of us look very much forward to working with you as well. And we'll be looking forward. I think we'll have the opportunity to set up some meetings one-on-one with directors and staff to get to know you more. And thank you very much for being here this evening.
Thank you for having me.
All right. With that, I'm moving quick just because I know we've got a lot on the agenda. I want to move to item 4.2, which is resolution 25-7, honoring the service of Lieutenant Garrett Teslaw. And I have a proclamation of the board of directors here for you. I'm going to go ahead and read it into the record. This is a resolution of the board of directors of the Isla Vista Community Services District honoring the service of Lieutenant Garrett Teslaw. Whereas Lieutenant Garrett Teslaw served the Isla Vista community with distinction as station commander of the Isla Vista Foot Patrol from February 2023 to March 2025. And whereas Lieutenant Teslaw demonstrated leadership in collaborating with associated students, IVCSD board of directors members, and long-term residents to develop updates to county ordinances that enhance community safety, prohibiting pay-to-play parties, and enhancing cliff and balcony safety. And whereas Lieutenant Teslaw spearheaded efforts to improve coordination of resources during Beltopia, enhancing integration of emergency response services and law enforcement. And whereas Lieutenant Teslaw maintained transparent and consistent communication with stakeholders regarding time-sensitive public safety incidents in Isla Vista, including drug overdoses, cliff incidents, physical assaults, and gun violence incidents. And whereas Lieutenant Teslaw's proactive approach to public safety challenges has fostered a more safe and resilient Isla Vista community, be it resolved by the board of directors that we hereby express our gratitude and appreciation for Lieutenant Garrett Teslaw for his exemplary service to the Isla Vista community, and wish him well in his new role as South County Commander for the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office.
Picture. Wait, hold it, hold it.
Okay. Maybe we all want to stand up?
Yeah.
Great.
We haven't quite got the
Yeah, I know.
sort of stage left, stage
I'm
right.
voting yes, so I probably should be.
Okay.
Okay. Shay doesn't want to be in it. 3, 2, 1. Keep smiling, doing great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for all the time working on it.
Spencer, we also need a motion to.
Yes. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve. I'll second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Discussion, Director Freeman.
Yeah, I would just like to say that I probably actually feel like I could have written a declaration, like a declaration that for Lieutenant Tislaw that went in a very different direction that I would maybe feel comfortable voting yes on. One thing that I've actually very much appreciated about you is your background in event work and then the occasional times that I've seen you stand up for people's ability, like rights for being part of entertainment and culture. And I wish that this had gone in that angle. In that direction, because I actually think that there's some aspects of your work that I'm very sad that you were leaving. But the declaration that's written, I wasn't for some like the ordinances. I mean, I wasn't at one of the meetings kind of on purpose though, because I didn't it was just troubling and I didn't want to end up in a giant argument about it. I am not for a lot of the other aspects of the work on Deltopia. I feel like you've gone forward directly sometimes on the restorative justice program and have made comments about how just anyone who's even remotely involved in parties is inherently hostile to the police and just hostile to the public order. And so I'm just not comfortable with this document. And so because of that, like I'm in an interesting position because I feel like maybe the correct vote is no. I'm sitting here like just struggling with whether the correct vote might be. I mean, I know according to our policy, the correct vote wouldn't be abstain, but I feel like I also don't want to go down directly necessarily as no on this document. But I'm not going to be voting yes, and I'm going to be putting a coin in my head in a second as far as what I am voting. So.
Director Deschler.
Yes, I just want to thank Spencer and others who drafted this resolution honoring Lieutenant Tesla. I just wanted to say when I got your email saying that you were stepping down, as you notice, I've not responded to your email because I was in denial. I want to say that I have really appreciated your approach to this role, how you've brought different segments of the community together. I feel like your approach has been one of collaboration, connection, communication. I appreciate the proactive work that you've done with the ordinances and working with associated students as well as the university. So I'm excited about the new leadership, but it's always a little bit hard with the way that the sheriff's office works, that every couple of years we see someone leave. And so I've super enjoyed working with you, and I'm glad you're not leaving and going too far away so that you'll still be involved in the work here. So I think you've left a good model for the future. And I look forward to Lieutenant Schmidt and what he brings to the role. So thank you. Very happy to vote in favor.
Yeah, and I'll share kind of to make my thought process known for why Director Topliff and I wanted to have this resolution brought forward is that although I think many of us on the board may not agree with some of the methods that are used in law enforcement all the time, and I think that we'll probably talk a lot about that in the next item. It is important, I think, that we honor and support the service of those that are trying to do good in the community, particularly those that are keeping us safe from a public safety perspective. And I think, as I shared with Lieutenant Tesla when I found out that he was leaving, worked with a variety of lieutenants. I believe it's either 6 or 7 since I've lived here. And I know hands down that the style of someone that is collaborative, that is direct, that will go back and forth with you and talk things through, even if you don't always agree, is better than someone that retreats back inwards. And that you being here tonight is a testament to that. And I think that the fact that Lieutenant Schmidt comes with your recommendation makes me feel really good about that relationship as well. So that's kind of my thinking behind this. Director Cephas.
Also from like the student that lives in Isla Vista, I really am like fortunate that you were here to like help. Although like we don't like always directly interact with you, I've never once not felt safe in Isla Vista, and I know that's because of your efforts. So I thank you for that.
Any other comments from the board? Director Hope.
Yeah, I kind of definitely agree with what you were saying. I think that we're not always going to see eye to eye or agree on every single decision that's made, but at the end of the day, I think that there has been a lot of great things that have happened in your time here and in your service to the community, and that collaboration is extremely important in terms of, going forward and taking into account the community's voices, and I think that's something that you definitely do. So I am grateful for that, regardless of any things that we may not see eye to eye on. And I thank you for that.
Okay, I'm seeing other comments on the board. Is there any public comment on this item? All right, back to the board. Seeing no further discussion, let's go to a roll call vote, please.
Director Brandt,
Yes.
Director Palat,
Yes.
Director Deschler,
Yes.
Director Freeman,
Abstain.
Director Hobart,
Yes.
Director Cepos,
Yes.
Director Topper.
Yes.
All right, motion carries 6 with 1 abstention. Okay, thank you very much. Now we're going to move to the Spring Festival and Deltopia debrief. We'll hand it over to our staff.
Yeah, so I think we put this as a quick ability to be able to talk about how the day went, but we will have a more formal report at our next, couple meetings that goes into the details and everything. But I think, Maya's here, she can share some of how our event was, and Garrett can also share how it went from the law enforcement perspective.
Of course. So I'll just talk a little bit about our spring festival and some things that went well, and some things that I'd like to see maybe some improvement on next year. So first thing, traffic calming techniques was a mix of a success and a fail. I think that the crosswalk art installations did make a huge difference. I saw a lot more people crossing at a crosswalk, which is a huge win. Also, we had some stop signs installed thanks to Jenna, and I did see a lot of cars taking note of that and slowing down in that high traffic area. So we were really happy with those results. We had a lot of really positive engagement with our community on social media, which we're really proud of. We had upwards of reach of like 30,000 people per post, which we're really proud of, and we'll go into more detail in the report. Overall, our festival drew over 6,000 attendees and served about 20,000 tacos throughout the day. Our 700 bagels were gone within the first hour in the morning, and our bike was being chased down the street, which I consider to be a really big win. And the recovery center served 14 people on Saturday, and many stopped by to pick up snacks and food, drug testing strips, etc. An additional 30 people used the space just to rest and charge their phone, and 3 of those patients needed 911 transport. Our wellness checkpoint served over 50 individuals with basic first aid, with about 2 needing hospital transportation. Our safety station served over 5,500 community members. And those are some of our big wins. So thank you all for your support on that thus far. A couple things that didn't go so well. So our parking enforcement, ironically, didn't go well. A lot of our signs for no parking were stolen, even if they were tied to trees, grilled into the ground. They were just stolen. A lot of rentals that were lost. So that didn't go so well. We only ended up having about 2 parking spots that were only open just for our sink that we needed to install. Additionally, the Uber Lyft pickup was not used. I think students just wanted to get to the closest barricade instead of actually having one central area. So that was something that we learned for next year. We did also notice that there was a large police force in some of our resources that we're providing. So for example, our wellness checkpoints saw some crowds in front of them, and even some police officers using the tables to write tickets. And we also saw some police officers in front of the recovery center. So I just think in the future, when we're having these resources and we want them to be a safe space, I worry about the message that sends when people are getting tickets in front of them as well. So I think that's something to explore moving forward. That's all for my report out. Thank y'all. Overall, it was a really great success, and everyone we talked to in our survey reported that they really enjoyed the space, that they felt safe. They were thankful for the water and the bathrooms, and we were just happy to be there for them. So that's all for me.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that report, and really appreciate all of our team's hard work over this last weekend. It wasn't just the weekend, it was the weeks preparing up for it. And then it was the day after with the cleanup. So just my hat is off to you for all of the work, and I hope that you get to take some time off soon. Okay, any questions for Maya at this point?
What happened to all the signs that were like placed all around IV of like directing people where to go?
They were there. I think a lot of them were stolen.
We did collect a lot
The
to
next
put in
day?
the office. So there's
Okay.
some in there, but some, I did see someone literally stealing one too.
Maybe they need it. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes,
I'm
guess.
happy for, if they want a memorabilia of the spring festival to hang in their house, I love it. I'm happy to support. But they were out in the morning.
I did see someone had started to decorate their house with them. So
I love it. I love it. I'm glad the featured artist is getting that empowerment.
reuse, we'll take it.
We'll take it.
Director Deschler.
I just wanted to go through some of the numbers because I couldn't write fast enough.
Mhm.
You said something about 30,000?
No.
The Instagram reach.
Oh, Instagram reach. Yeah.
Oh,
So I was like,
Instagram. 30,000 Instagram?
Yeah, we had over 30,000 views on our bathrooms reel, which really made an impact, might I say.
And the 6,000 attendees at the IV Festival. And then you said 50 people at the wellness? What did you say?
The wellness checkpoint served about 50 individuals with basic first aid, and 2 of them needed to go to the hospital.
Was that the one that was in the park?
In
Those
the
are
park.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then, can you say how many people were at the recovery center?
So 15 people were resting on cots, sleeping or napping.
Mhm.
About 30 people were there to like charge their phone or maybe support their friend who was in there, or maybe just sit and just want to eat a snack. And then a lot of people throughout the day were just grabbing food and testing strips just from the front table. So wanted to give a little bit of variety there.
And then the bathrooms that were, 1 block off of DP, those were bathrooms we provided.
Yes.
And then the bathroom on DP,
We pay for that too.
that one.
We pay for 3 of them.
Was there a reason that there were so many on I'm sorry, I don't know.
Sabado.
Sabado and not on DP?
I think that's something we've worked out with Garrett in the past. to
Got it.
Keep them away from the crowds.
Got it. Yeah, okay. Wow, I mean, I had so much fun. I walked 12,000 steps and I woke up Sunday. I had such good hopes of like helping to clean up, and I'm like, okay, no, body's not moving today.
Mhm.
But I thought it was amazing. I thought the paramedic EMTs that were in the park did a great job. I saw a lot of really proactive checking on people that were in the park, and that really felt good that was happening. I appreciated the mocktails. I tried that. I didn't try the teeth grill, although Jonathan did try and convince me to do it. But I just thought it was a great event. And I guess I would ask you in your after action report and thinking is like, what kinds of things you mentioned today, some of the things you want to do differently. One, I'd love to be part of that conversation. One thing I noticed is I don't think people knew about the bathrooms on Sabado because their lines were very long on DP right in front of the UCIV tent, which that didn't seem to be, I think signage would help a little bit better, and then maybe directional signage to bathrooms. But other than that, boy, I had such good, is that bad to say? Such a good time.
No, that's great. That's great. I'm glad.
So thank you for all your efforts and your team's efforts, Fiona, and yeah, great communications, and just really appreciate all your work you did.
Thank you so much.
Director Freeman.
Were the signs that were stolen pointing at the bathrooms?
Oh.
I didn't want to say.
Oh, no,
That's
say
good.
that.
That's good feedback though, because next year we'll put a sign at that other bathroom saying more bathrooms on Salvador.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
maybe if they're at that bathroom, they were like, didn't realize there was more. So
Yeah.
I agree. That was still good feedback.
Excellent.
How many 911 transports do we have?
So 3 from the recovery center and 2 from the wellness checkpoint, so a total of 5.
That doesn't seem that bad.
Yeah, I think relatively similar from our event last year, those numbers, yeah.
I just want to share the feedback that the deputy director of Good Samaritan shared with me, which is that having operated theirs during Cal Poly's St. Friday's Day and then done ours, similar sort of sobering center type of thing. Even though I know we're not supposed to say that word, I guess, but that that it worked way better here because of the central location of the community center. And they felt like they were able to serve more people.
And I will say their team was incredible. So Good Samaritan's team that they sent was amazing. They were super responsive. They made sure to introduce themselves not only to my entire team, but they even, walked over to the field treatment site and made sure that those people knew who they were, and just to make sure that they were, a warm, welcoming face to whoever was either working the event, working in the community that day, or the community members. So great shout out to their Good Samaritan team as well.
I want to look over to our friends at the sheriff's office and ask if there's any sort of, I know that statistics are still getting worked out and everything, but if you have any preliminary thoughts that you want to share.
Sure. I'll stand up just on that. So for us overall, the event was, I always hesitate to use the word success because again, this is an unsanctioned event with a lot of public safety impacts, a lot of public work impacts. And so the simple fact that the event, I'm not talking about Spring Festival, that's its own thing, but Deltovia, the fact that it exists as a thing, I'll never call it a success. But within that confines, it was a success. So what I mean by that is that, we saw an increase in medical calls again over last year, which was the big concern, right? We've been trying to frame this as a medical event for the last couple of years because it really is about the medical issues, the overdoses, particularly that come from this. We saw still more than we saw last year, but in working with Santa Barbara County Fire and EMSA, we tripled the size of the triage tent that was over there by Foot Patrol. We added 2 more ER physicians for a total of 3. And so what we were able to do was divert a significant amount of people to that triage tent for treatment rather than sending them to the hospital. And so the vast majority of people who required medical aid and medical interventions didn't end up having to go to a hospital. They were still seen by a physician, but they didn't have to go through that process. Unfortunately, we still did have a good amount of transports. And unfortunately, I don't have that good number in front of me, so I'm gonna have to defer to my fire and EMSA partners for that specific, but there was about 83 medical calls in Isla Vista, but there was actually more accurately, there's probably about 130 medical calls requiring a response. So 83 people were dealt with, had to be addressed. Another 50-ish, once we got there, they either didn't want any medical intervention or we couldn't find them, that sort of thing, but about 130 calls for medical service on the event. We had a significant increase in arrests and citations compared to last year. That was evidenced by just the fact that there were far more law enforcement out than there were in the past. So we had 485 citations were written, mostly for minor in possession, open container, those sorts of things. And we had 84 arrests. The vast majority of those arrests were for public intoxication, and they started at 9 a.m. That was our first arrest. I want to point out for people is, yes, those people are under arrest, but this is a protective custody arrest. So when someone is arrested for public intoxication, it's because they can't care for their own safety or the safety of others. And so they're in such an intoxicated state that they can't make decisions for themselves on their own. And so we take them into protective custody until they sober up. The vast majority of people who receive a public intoxication arrest have nothing end up going on their criminal record. Most are referred to the district attorney's restorative justice program or to drug and alcohol diversion. That's the vast majority of people. If it's a standalone, there's nothing else to it. They didn't fight with us. They didn't try to run. There's not an additional charge of possession of cocaine or something like that. It gets wiped off there. The other arrests were for either fighting with us or for fighting with other members of the public, but we actually saw very few fights just within the public, and we didn't see any felony fights, any felonious fights where someone ended up getting seriously injured. So that's why I say it's a success. The other reason is that we saw a lot of great compliance on balconies and rooftops. We shut a lot of parties down for rooftop attendees, and we did shut down maybe another 8 or 9 for people on the bluffs or sitting on the fence railing on the exposed bluffs. But the vast majority of the balconies along Del Playa were open. They were not packed with people like we've seen in years past. And we saw a lot of great compliance and cooperation from the public by taking that party off the balconies. So that was a huge win because, you know, our biggest concern is, of course, a clip ball every year. And our very close second is a fentanyl overdose. And we didn't have either of those this year. So again, I use the word success with some couching to it, but to us, it was a great event. I'll answer any questions you might have.
Thank you.
Oh, can I touch on your question about bathrooms?
Oh, yeah.
To be specific to it, not to give anyone ideas, but it was a compromise we came up with a couple of years ago when they were first suggested. But our concern with bathrooms on Del Playa is that they can be tipped over, as they have routinely on the weekends here, but that amount of bathrooms can become a traffic hazard and can cause serious obstructions to traffic and public access if we needed to get in an emergency situation. So because Sabado is significantly less traveled, that we're more comfortable with that.
Thank you for that report. Any questions from the board? Director Toppel?
I just was interested in why there were mounted police present, and that seemed very incongruent to me to see them at the end of the day arrayed in front of the medical clinic.
So mounted units serve a couple different purposes, and one is they're great for crowd control when needed for crowd control, but also because our beaches were closed, they can travel those beaches very easily. It would take deputies, and it would exhaust deputies to do that patrol on the beaches. They were mostly doing beach patrol force there to watch those beaches, but they would come up and move around. And I promise this is true. They always end up being everyone's favorite part. Like no one likes to see the cops on foot, but they love seeing the horses. And so it's actually kind of one of our strategies to get people to talk to us, and a PR part of it is because we get a lot of good feedback from people who just want to ask questions about the horse, and then they start talking to us.
The thought of them on Del Playa was just like horrifying to me.
Oh, well, I mean, they go through a lot of training, and they're not going to be spooked by just all those crowds. They get desensitized to that as part of their training. But
Is that what you're worried about, the horses or the people?
The combination. I mean, it was very packed. Did they actually go on Del Playa?
I don't think they ever made it down Del Playa until later on when it had thinned out, was my understanding, but I wasn't watching them all day long.
They were just at the one part.
Yeah.
Caps Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they came in the back way over there and then came in and just kind of hung out there for a little bit.
Yeah, I know they made Sabado because I saw their extra
Evidence.
Yeah, and I mean, I know it's funny to say, but I mean, we get complaints about that kind of stuff.
Understood.
And I wish that there was the foresight to clean up after them. Director Friedman.
Yeah, on such note, I mean, I totally don't question that they're keep the horses and get a kick out of approaching you on it. But I feel like the horses have been one of the top complaints over the years, both from the intimidation factor as well as the idea that we need a crowd control, like concept like that, and also the excrement that ends up all over the place. That it just feels. I mean, like it's almost like this weird metaphor of the cops are going around shitting on our streets, and it just doesn't that part just really doesn't help.
I appreciate the comments because we do a debrief every year. We have our first one and multiple of every event. Our first one's on Thursday, and there's more after that. We will look at how what impacts we had and what worked and what didn't, and where we could maybe streamline things so that we're achieving the same goal without maybe an impact that might be adverse to the community. So we appreciate the comments on that.
Yeah, I guess the thing that goes through my mind is I'm just very sure that even just our board, much less the associated students, have brought this complaint to the sheriff's department often. I mean, I remember one time was like we actually had gotten some kind of like, oh yeah, no, the sheriffs have agreed this year that we're not going to have a bunch of mounted patrol out there. And I can't remember whether or not the agreement was honored or not, or whether it was very formal or not. But like, it's just like, it's feedback that keeps going back and forth. And so it's a little bit, it's like, oh, thanks for the feedback. It's like, yeah, this is like the 10th year I've heard people complaining about it. So.
Any sort of agreement would predate me.
Yeah.
We haven't used them in 2 years. So this is our first time back. And part of that was because we did expect this very significant event with a much larger crowd than we ended up having.
And I think that's kind of then why it's like, if they hadn't been there, it's like, well, clearly you must really want them. It's like, why were they there this year? It's like, oh, because you didn't realize this. That's why it's like, can you write something down? Can you like be brief and like tell him that like.
I wish I had a crystal ball to know
Yeah.
how many people are showing up and what
Yeah.
attitude they're gonna have when they get here and how level of intoxication, and unfortunately I don't. So
Yeah, no, that's-
we were anticipating and expecting a much larger crowd, a lot more out of, we had a lot of out of towners, but a lot more, right? And that sort of stuff. And so that's one of those things we can use when we expect that the crowd might be of that makeup. So something to consider. We saw a lot of things this year. It'll be Lieutenant Schmidt's responsibility to come, develop a plan for next year, and I'm sure we'll take that as part of that.
Maybe what might be useful in that sort of thing, particularly because we know that isn't it normally every 2 years even? I mean, that the handoff would normally occur to you.
There's no schedule.
There wasn't a schedule. Okay,
It does average about 3 years.
Okay, so if we know it's going to happen every 3 years, maybe we should proactively put together a list of all the things that we want to make certain that the new incoming people always know, and so that we can hand that off to them every time as like an orientation from the IVCSD of like, here's here's the kind of complaints you've got in the past. Here's the things that because in order to make buffer against potential handoffs, like whoever was before you, not explaining to you what was going on. So. As far as there was one thing you said in your report that made me very happy, although I'm not certain, it seemed a little confusing to me. You said that most of the arrests for public intoxication were sent to the district attorney's restorative justice program. I thought that was suspended.
This is part of this is the challenge of talking about these things accurately. So
Yeah.
The sheriff's office restorative justice program was suspended. So here's the basic difference. The sheriff's restorative justice program is pre-intervention from the district attorney, meaning on a Friday night, you get your citation. On Monday morning, you come sign up for the class. We hold that citation until you complete the class. And if you complete the class, we shred it as if it never happened, right? For all the reasons we've already stated very openly and publicly, we suspend that during Deltopia. But the district attorney has their own restorative justice program. What we like about this setup is that though it still offers a restorative justice option for most people, it does require a higher level of court and judicial system intervention, meaning they do have to go to court. They have to apply for the program. They have to sit in front of a judge and explain why they are worthy of the program and what it is they did that justifies them getting into that program. The DA will then make a recommendation for them to come into the program, and then that's pretty much it. They will have to go through usually community service in a class very similar to ours. But if they fail to complete all of their work there, then it becomes a criminal citation and they go back to court for potential punishment or fine, really, right? So for us, there's a little more teeth to that process than ours. And so the district attorney is free to do what they want, of course, but we like their program. We like referring people to it still. We just feel that it's a worthy discussion within the Isla Vista community when the sheriff's office suspends it for the reasons, that we feel that participation in Deltopia is inherently against the ethos of the program that we're trying to build. Does that clarify that a little bit?
That does clarify that, and thank you so much for for clarifying that. So.
Sure, yeah. They sound very identical.
I was very confused.
I'm gonna do my best to model the good behavior and stick to questions at this point. But I take issue with something that you said, which is that the program, does it not run on volunteers?
Sorry, what program?
The DA's Neighborhood Restorative Justice Court.
I'm not sure what you mean. Run on volunteers, like
it requires volunteers to be able to address the number or the cases as they are referred to the program.
I'm sorry.
I may be asking you something that's out of your depth because it's.
No, I'm just trying to understand volunteers who volunteer to go into the program who've received the citation, or you mean people?
No, volunteers that handle sort of the restitution component of the program.
Yeah, I can't speak to how they handle their program into the logistics of once the citation is handed off.
I mean, we're talking about 485 citations. This program has had problem getting volunteers before and being able to meet the demand, and we just dumped 485 citations on it. I mean, it doesn't seem like a very strategic thing to do if our goal is for these to be diverted.
Well, we also have drug and alcohol diversion is one of the other options, but I'll tell you, I mean, we've been in constant contact with the district attorney's office for months about our increased enforcement compared to previous years and what their expectations are and what they're able to handle. I've had at least a half dozen meetings with them on Deltopia, and that's never been raised as a concern for them. So I take that at face value that that's not an issue.
But my other editorial comment is I think it's important that the district attorney's office hears from us about some of the concerns I think that are being shared today. I cut in line from you. I saw you had your hand up, Director Hobart.
So my first question was for the mounted patrol, they are able to do arrests, correct? Or
they're able, but that'd be pretty rare.
Because I did witness an arrest for mounted patrol on Trigo during Deltopia. And that was kind of one of the things that I wanted to talk about because I do see the intimidation factor of that. If, you know, it was a woman that was being arrested and she was kind of sat down on the curb and there were all these horses around her. And so I'm kind of just wondering if maybe that's something that could be considered of maybe having mounted patrols not doing arrests to kind of decrease like that intimidation, having it more be like you said, a patrol that like goes down the beach, things like that. Because, you know, I think that, yeah, having, it was, I think 5 horses kind of around you with police officers on them would be intimidating to me. So I did witness that. And my second question was, do you guys have a number on the crowd size? And also, do you have the demographics of people arrested or cited?
Appreciate the questions and the feedback on the horses. I can't speak to what was occurring in that particular moment, so it might have been a situation where they had to act, but also I think that's valuable feedback that, you know, we look at roles and responsibilities a little bit. In terms of demographics of people cited, the short answer is no, not yet. At 485 citations with only 2 people going through them by hand, it's just one of those things that we don't get. We typically don't release specific demographic information on the citations for a variety of public records issues, but I will, or I guess Lieutenant Schmidt now, will do his best to give you as clear a picture as we can legally in the coming weeks. Crowd size, that's always like a hard one. We're still looking at a lot of photos, trying to figure out one of the unique things that was like different this year. I think it was because there was so much cooperation without the large parties on the bluff side. And frankly, I think because there was a law enforcement present, it kept the crowd moving. So our experience was that people were moving up and down Del Playa, but Sabado, but also into the business loop a lot more than the previous years. It was really busy down on that end. And so it was kind of this moving whirlpool of people. So because of that, it's hard to kind of capture. My guesstimate is that we are about where we were last year at about 25,000. So a slight about the same at this point.
What exactly is the main factor for the less people on the balconies? Like, what was driving that?
On the balcony, I mean, I just chalk that to people taking responsibility as locals. I think your door hanger was fantastic in trying to reframe the conversation around like this is a local event. Like, don't bring people from out of town or just looking to cause problems. I think the ordinances had a huge part in that because it keeps the party size smaller. But the education on bluff and rooftop safety that you all were doing, I think was key. But we were all pleasantly surprised that we really weren't seeing a whole lot of issues on the bluff side there, which of course makes it a little easier every day.
Other questions from the board? We've been talking a lot, so I want to go ahead, Director Dash.
my colleague asked about demographics, so I don't know if that means male, female, affiliates, non-affiliates, is that what that means? Like how many UCSB students, how many students or people out of the area, male, female, is that what we're talking about?
I assume you mean,
Yeah, I can clarify that.
Okay,
This
cool,
is my
cool.
question.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah.
By demographics, I mean male, female,
Yeah.
as well as ethnicity. And I mean, I don't really think that there would be a demographic for in-town, out-of-towners, but my main interest is in if, who, what, if it's people of color, if it's not people of color, if it's women, if it's men that we're being arrested or cited more. That's what my interest is in, so,
Thank you.
yeah.
So just to follow up on that, I would be interested to know, and I think we already do this, is just how many UCSB students? And then will you work with UCPD to identify, to look, or student affairs to look at that list so we can identify who's UCSB students?
we typically refer to UCPD serious, offense violation, serious arrests.
Okay,
We did have some, and I don't have a number on it, so I haven't spoken to it yet, but we have had some sexual assault reports come in from the weekend, which is expected, unfortunately.
yeah,
If those end up being UCSB students, that would certainly be something that we would turn over to them.
okay.
From a student conduct perspective, we don't typically share like a public intoxication arrest or a
No.
minor possession citation. Like that's not something that we are interested in pursuing a conduct issue with the university on typically. And so, yes, we do ask everyone, where do you go to school? Some are truthful, some are not. So it's kind of an ambiguous term. It's not like we have it on their driver's license, unfortunately. But it is something we look at, and it is still a very significant local issue. But we did see UCLA, UC Riverside, Cal Poly, UC San Diego. We definitely saw the other schools here.
And then, are you familiar if any of the citations were to international students?
I don't know that.
Okay.
I do know we managed to people from Sweden the day before who were very excited to come to Delta. So I'm not sure how their day fared, but
Thank you.
Okay, let's open up public comment. Any public comments on festival and Deltopia debrief? Go ahead. Owen.
No, yeah, I guess I'll just stand up, sure.
Feel free.
Hey everyone, I just wanted to report a bit on UCIV. First off, big shout out to Maya. Honestly, like incredibly massive shout out. It was because of Maya's I guess you could say kindness, and also just letting us and communicating with us throughout this entire process. Is because you reached out to us that I think it made the process so much easier. So I really appreciate you talking to me and Nando at that safe meeting a long time ago, or community network meeting. But so very much appreciated. I think that was a great partnership, and I'm glad we could contribute to you guys in that project. But yeah, big shout. I know everyone's been saying this, but the door hanger campaign, very great stuff. Also the collaboration, when it comes to the Narcan distribution and you're doing testing kits. I saw you guys involved with a variety of local entities, and I just think from a student perspective, from what I've heard, as everyone was very happy with your guys' efforts. So thank you very much for that. I guess I'll just shout out UCIV. The representatives worked incredibly hard. I was so proud of all of them. Just seeing them work at that 10 station, I thought it was very highly successful. Just to give some numbers, specifically, UCIV gave out 7,000 cups. We gave out around 7,000 cups. We'll give we'll have exact numbers, but we had 7,000 themselves, and then our representatives had to buy more and bring them back to the tent. As for liquid IV that we gave out over 3,000 units. We gave out over 500 gallons of water. We gave out sorry, I'm just these are numbers. I could honestly look at, hold on, just real quick. Also, we gave out over $3,000 worth of food, in form of snacks. We just had a ton of snacks to give out, as we usually do. 1,200 units of Narcan distributed. Shout out to you guys as well for the convergence on that. Also, we gave out over 600 fentanyl test strips, and yeah, those are all our main statistics. As of course, for when it comes to the tent station being used, I know some of you guys actually did visit. Thanks for stopping by the way. But we had the entire park was filled with people, and I think it was definitely due to the safe space environment that tent provided. I think it saying non-police affiliated did provide a comfortable environment for people to come to, because they're oh, this is a place I could come to just relax with friends. And also, it was a pretty hot day. I'm sure a lot of people were just coming just to get water. and being like, hey, this is like a really cool snack station like along the way. And so I'd like to thank the sheriff's department and ES for you guys' work on that. I know like it was difficult, like we were coming up like that perspective, like, oh, like we need to use that like location. And I understand with like Lemsa and everything, it was a bit complicated to work for in the short term. But I at least appreciate them becoming like a compromise to use the park, and I hope that's something we can look forward towards in the future. It's nice to meet you. We've met before, but, yeah, we just now, just briefly, but I look forward to working with you. My term will be almost up though. So it'll be the next EDPA after me. That's kind of like the curse, right? Is that you kind of get like an EDPA that's mine gets reset every year. But I appreciate that at least, and I really hope we can foster that kind of harm reduction plus enforcement approach. But I do have stuff to speak on regarding the enforcement approach, and that is, of course, I mean, no surprise that I'm vocal about this. The restorative justice suspension, that is something that like previous EDPAs and me have like continuously criticized as just hearing this as well. I think it's like the citation numbers, of course, way up than before, and I think that was due mostly to this mass increase in enforcement. And I was seeing just like through observation the fact that there was a ton of road closures more than like last year, especially. And I think just that like part of that environment, I just think it contributes to like a lot of that factor of intimidation that we were referring to before, like the mounted individuals. And I think these are resources that could be diverted to other things like to harm reduction elements that could be used in cooperation with enforcement. I would never argue that like there shouldn't be enforcement, especially in an event such as Deltopia, but to ramp up enforcement at a level and kind of not focus on the harm reduction aspect, I think is a criticism that I have. I think that was just the struggle it was to get the 10th station and the involvement of the associated students in the event. I just feel like that's something in the future that can definitely work on, like paths to integration with Lisa and working with and getting those like professional medical support on the 10th. And by the way, do I have like a time limit or anything? Just wanted to ask. I didn't know if
we play a little fast and loose. Okay.
So like, I just wanted to ask, just like set it like has like, oh, by the way, you only have like 30 seconds left. I don't have like speed run the rest. But I just think like with like harm reduction, like it can go hand in hand. And I think just emphasizing that we don't have to increase enforcement at the cost of another, or we don't have to increase harm reduction at the cost of another. But what I saw and what a lot of students have been like informing me is that there was like this mass increase of police enforcement presence, but I think a lot of those resources could have been diverted to like, for example, like salaries like more paramedics, more like EMTs, whether it be like any kind of medical staff and personnel. And so that's just something I definitely want to hammer in and mention. And it's definitely something we can work on in the short and long term. But ultimately what I saw was I was very happy with how Deltopia went. Obviously, yes, Deltopia is an unsanctioned event and it's quite chaotic. No one can deny that. But I was very happy to see so many moving parts of the community work together. And I think we're moving towards a good path. And so I was very happy to see that. I just hope that we can continue to move forward from this. UCIV has grown so much, and I'm very happy to see that it was highly successful this year. And so I just hope in the future we can move forward and like have these like safer Deltopias where we do emphasize harm reduction as a collaborative approach. And so thank you. That's all I just wanted to say.
Thank you very much, Owen. And thank you for all the work that UCIV did to prepare for and respond to this weekend. I don't know how many pools 50,000 gallons of water fills, but it's got to be a lot.
Probably significant.
Sydney, go ahead.
All right. I just really wanted to shout out UCIV because when I was walking along Del Playa on Saturday, I witnessed 2 UCIV reps supporting somebody that needed it. And it was really that peer-to-peer interaction that was just so powerful. And I just really commend you all and thank you for all of your efforts. So I just had to shout you out.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Sydney has said. I've been working with UCIV and trying to support the planning process and just make sure that y'all felt supported, even if you were on DP separated from our event, but with the same goal of harm reduction and trying to provide those resources. And you and Fernando were so great to work with. We approached any roadblock with collaboration, with communication. And I also appreciate Tesla, like your work with us in trying to find those spaces and see where we could fit and see how we could work together. I think that it's more of that that is really going to help us grow moving forward. And I'm just so thankful for all of your team's work. So thank you so much.
Thank you for that. Any other public comments on this item? Anything on Zoom?
I think we have a public comment. Yes.
Okay. Whoever is on Zoom wanting to do public comment, go ahead and unmute and we will hear your comment.
I'm messaging with her. Give me a second to respond. Okay, I think they need to rejoin the meeting. So
Okay.
I don't know if you.
Go ahead and see if they can get it worked out. Let us know once they're ready. And in the meantime, we'll bring it back to the board. We'll reopen it when they are able to get back on. Well, it's probably better that we just get through the public comment. We're so close.
A message. It's Aaron who sent the email in.
Okay.
But you wanted to make a comment.
Okay. So for the time being, I'm going to bring it back to the board. I had one more question that I forgot about that I want to ask before we get into some more discussion, which is a question about, you mentioned, Lieutenant Tesla, evaluations and refusals for medical service. And I witnessed that on a couple of occasions. I wonder, is that a statistic that you guys have, or that LEMSA would have, about how prevalent that was?
LEMS would have a very much more specific answer for you on how many were refusals. It's medical advice, AMA. That's kind of the standard term when someone probably should go to the hospital, but they're still, cogent and conscious enough to make decisions for themselves, and they say, no, I don't want to go. So there's a significant amount of those during something like Deltopia. And then others who are passers-by and might see a problem and call it in, but by the time medics get there, that person's moved on, or they've been picked up by a friend, or who knows what else. But, yeah, LEMSA would have a better idea.
Thank you for that. Okay, we have a public comment. Feel free to unmute and go ahead now.
Yep, you're muted still, Aaron. Oh, Aaron, you're still muted. She's speaking, but she's muted still. She left the meeting again.
Okay, let's close public comment and go back to the board. I had one more thing that I wanted to bring up about the arrests and citation statistics. And I don't like to put people on the spot, but I feel like it is appropriate in this case because I think the sentiment of this was brought up by one of our public commenters, which is Lieutenant Tesla shared with myself and Director Deschler and Jonathan on Saturday that there was a part of the strategy in place was to detain women in particular that were suspected of being under the influence. And can you expound on that a little bit?
That's not at all what I said nor what I meant, but what I was trying to relate to you when we were sitting there at field booking and showing was that the vast majority of the people who were under arrest at that point were females, and that they are taken into protective custody, just as I explained earlier, and to the point that yes, it's not fun. We do our best, and we certainly treat them with respect, and to a concern that you had brought up in the earlier comments, could put a big giant T-shirt on them so that they're covered up and they're, you know, protected and they're clothed in that way as soon as we can. But that it's often counterintuitive that a young female would get arrested in Isla Vista, but with public intoxication as it is, the severity of the public intoxication in those people is dangerous, right? And so what we see in years past, and we know this just from past events and just any Friday night, when anyone, female or not, is intoxicated and then say they are a resident of the dorms, and their friends bring them back to the dorm and then return to the party, that person is left intoxicated, potentially unconscious, and very dangerous now alone in the dorms. And so it's much safer if they come into protective custody with us than if they're left in the dorms by themselves with no one to care for them. Conversely, as intoxication goes throughout the day, the more and more intoxicated someone becomes, the more likely they are to be victimized by a crime, and the more likely they are to experience a severe, significant medical intervention or overdose, right? And so our strategy was not just for females, it was for everybody, that if we saw people who were suffering from or people who were intoxicated to the point they couldn't care for their safety or the safety of others, we were doing early interventions as soon as we could on those people to take them out of the population, make sure that they got sobered up, make sure that they got medical care, because the first thing that happens, as you saw when you go into field booking, you're seen by a nurse, right? First thing we want to do is get those people medical attention and medical care. And then from there on, they're watched, male or female, they're watched by us until they can sober up and they can return back into the wild. And so the strategy this year was very early interventions. Our first arrest was at 9 a.m., which was about 2 hours earlier than it was in previous years. It was because, I'll blame depending on which side you sit, the amount of law enforcement we had out was specifically to prevent people from getting to a point where they end up being the victim of more significant crimes, such as a sexual assault, a robbery, a significant fight with serious injury, or an overdose that leads to catastrophic events.
Okay, well, I appreciate that explanation, and I think early intervention is the phrase that you use. It's good to get the philosophy behind. Director Hobart.
Yes, I do think that while I can understand that approach, I think that what that sounded like to me was criminalizing potential victims. I think that arresting women specifically, as you said, you are trying to prevent them from becoming the victim of a crime later in the day if they're more drunk, inebriated, can't, defend themselves or take care of themselves. I don't feel like that is the correct approach. I think that that sends a message that people who are taken advantage of are kind of being criminalized, because we would prefer to arrest them, which is in itself can be a very traumatic interaction for people. So you also have to kind of question, like, is that doing more, is it benefiting them more, or is it also harming them to have them go through that experience? But I do think that in that context of framing it in a way of you're trying to prevent them from, being assaulted or something later in the day, I just think that that is a misuse of power by law enforcement. And if that is the reason for the approach, I don't think that that is acceptable. And I don't think that it sends a helpful message to anybody in Isla Vista who has experienced sexual assault. As you mentioned, there were people that were sexually assaulted on Saturday. And I think that to hear that the police enforcement were arresting people as a way to prevent that, I just don't think that that is appropriate. Also, within that, I just think that it isn't necessarily helping the problem of people being assaulted or victims of crime, because you can't arrest every single person in Isla Vista that is inebriated to a level that, you might deem to be unacceptable. So at that point, you're putting people through a traumatic experience as a justification for helping them when there's still those things going on. People still were sexually assaulted, people were still victims of crime. So I just want to address that, because I think that that's something that maybe we can discuss further in terms of Deltopia next year. But yeah, I think that putting it in that way is criminalizing potential victims, and I don't agree with that. But.
Could I ask my colleague a question? I'm interested in your perspective, and I just wonder, what would you recommend for people who are physically incapacitated to the point that they can't take care of themselves?
I don't think that, that is every single person that they were arresting. I think they were
But what would
mentioning
you
it.
say, but how would you address people that are physically incapacitated and can't take care of themselves?
Right, so if somebody is physically incapacitated and can't take care of themselves, then they should receive medical attention. And I also think that that is something that police do often do on the weekends and things like that. I think that if somebody is, you know, unable to walk, unable to take care of themselves, there have been appropriate responses to that. I think that the way that it was framed in this scenario was as a preventative measure. So it wasn't necessarily that somebody was at that point. It's that they were suspecting that they could get to that point, is how it was described.
I'm not sure if that's what Lieutenant Tesla said, but maybe you could clarify. And also maybe you could clarify that, in fact, people do receive medical care that you've taken
Right,
into custody.
I would like to say that. I do know that he had said that they do end up receiving medical care and sobering up. I did hear that part of it. If you would like to clarify it, what I heard was that it's a preventative measure for people that they think could get to that level, but.
So there's no such thing as an anticipatory drug in public. Right? So anyone who's arrested for public intoxication has to be at a point, there has to be probable cause to believe they're at the point where they can't care for their safety or the safety of others. So if someone's had a beer, they're not going to jail for public intoxication because they can care for themselves. And the vast majority of people throughout the whole day never got to the point where they had to have any either medical or law enforcement intervention. And so those people were not publicly intoxicated. They might have been intoxicated, but they could care for themselves. So that's the difference. Anyone who goes to jail and goes into protective custody on a 647F charge, which is public intoxication, they have to meet that element of unable to care for themselves with the safety of others. And so when I say it was preventative, it's only that so it doesn't get worse. So someone who's unable to walk a straight line in an hour, if they keep consuming, might be passed out in the gutter. In 2 hours might require an ambulance, in 3 hours, and so on and so forth, as the alcohol content in their blood continues to grow, right? So that's what I meant by that. But they all have to meet that basic element of unable to care for themselves.
I do understand that perspective. I think that it's difficult for me with my experience of what I witnessed on Deltopia to believe that every person that I saw arrested they couldn't take care of themselves. I did see lots of women arrested who were walking down the street, and to me, they didn't really seem that intoxicated. They weren't stumbling, they weren't falling, didn't look like anything to me. And I did witness police officers approach those people, put their hands behind their backs, things like that. And, you know, obviously we can speculate about what the cause was or anything like that. But I do know that there are a lot of people that share that sentiment, that there was over policing of certain individuals or for certain crimes, things like that. So that's where, you know, I think that it can be difficult, because a lot of people that I saw arrested or sat on the curb didn't seem to be doing the typical things that we as Isla Vista residents know are cause for concern, such as sitting on a curb, you know, things like that. So that's where I kind of think that that would be a valuable thing to maybe do a public forum or something along those lines for the police department to kind of hear from community members about what their experience was, any concerns that they have, or even things that they felt you guys did very well. So I don't know if that's something that you guys would be interested in, but I do know that even just in the last few days, I have heard from a lot of people that didn't feel the safest in police presence or felt targeted. And so if that's something that you guys are interested in exploring further, I think that could be great. But yeah, that was just my perspective on what I witnessed.
I also had 2 personal accounts that I thought were just a little like confusing and intimidating. At one point, I was sitting at Little Acorn Park and a girl had gotten arrested in front of a 7-Eleven. I didn't see why she got arrested for, but her friends like ran away from her when she got arrested, and she was very visibly upset and like sobbing on the curb, only wearing a bikini. And she was like surrounded by like 6 or 7 officers for like 5 minutes, and like no one was really doing anything to help her. She looked like she was being intimidated and looked very scared. And like, obviously there's nothing the public can do at that point. And I think in the future, we need to start thinking about how we can make women who are getting arrested feel a lot more safer. Maybe that includes like having more like women police officers. Like, maybe do you guys like work in groups, and like is there like a distribution you usually do of like how women officers, is that like a thing you think about?
We definitely try to put as many of our female officers out front in those crowd situations as we can. Yeah, it's just in a large area like that, it's
Yeah.
not as many as I'd like to have out there. True.
And you said that like you try to give them a giant t-shirt. I didn't see that on her, and I saw her
once they're in booking.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I saw her get arrested and put in the car, and I think.
So by the time she gets out of the car, she's got a
t-shirt. Is that something that could happen like earlier in the future? Like you have them in the cars or on your person?
I don't know. I'm not sure of the logistics of carrying it on a person, but I like the idea in general, like maybe in our transport vans so that there are more of them, or at the barricades.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, I think that's a valuable feedback. Thank you.
And then one of my friends got a citation. She was walking down, I think it was Trigo, with one of her friends, and they were going from their house to someone else's house, and they were like totally sober, walking pretty rushed, and she had a bag on her, and a cop like pulled her by the arm and like told her to stop and like forced her to open her bag to him. Is that something you guys have the jurisdiction to do?
I'm not going to make any comment on a specific enforcement stop without knowing the facts of that particular event. It completely depends on what happened leading up to the contact and what that deputy or officer observed in that moment.
Yeah.
So short answer is yes, but it depends all on the circumstances of what transpired there.
I just have a brief clarifying question. So for these protective custody arrests where you're like taking someone who's publicly intoxicated and like taking them into protective custody, these are the ones that then, since they're suspended sheriff restorative justice, have to go in front of a judge to get the DA restorative justice?
You don't always have to go in front of the judge. The DA can offer it to them first.
Okay, so these people, they don't, so that process, does that still involve like a lengthy like rehab course, or not like rehab, but like restorative course, or is that just like the DA just makes the decision and it's off the record?
The DA has all full say on that. So their process is theirs, and I can't speak to the nuances of how long it takes.
But they don't have to go in front of a judge as long as the DA is like.
Not always. If there's another charge, they might. Like,
but if they're fully cooperative, they don't have to. Like
cooperative with no other charge, they probably aren't going in front of.
Okay.
Yeah, and if I can add just to that, I would encourage anyone in the public or listening that is in contact with anyone that did receive an arrest or a citation to contact the public defender's office immediately, because there's instances in which they can be represented before a judge and not have to make the trek downtown too. I really want to uplift what my colleagues just shared, because this is not the first time that we're hearing this. I went back and looked at our debrief last year, and we kind of had the same conversation with former Director Craig about women in particular feeling very uncomfortable when you have groups of 5 or 6 male police officers bearing down on them. And I want to concur with a lot of the eyewitness accounts, both that we've heard and that I witnessed with my own eyes, which is that there were a number of people being detained that to me did not appear to meet the standard of unable to care for themselves or were blocking the public right of way. It is very difficult to square the circle of what I witnessed and what you share about what the strategy was. I also want to thank one of our public commenters who shared similar testimony. I know that is a really difficult thing to share, and I appreciate that you have. As for my other colleague's question about what should we do differently, we've already got the solution. We just heard it. We heard a great presentation from Maya about how we're able to serve 15 people in the recovery center, which is essentially a sobering center, but we can't call it that. And Good Samaritan, the organization that runs it, runs a sobering center 24/7 on the county campus. So I look at all these things and I see not only are we maybe missing the outcomes, but we're doing it in a way that's efficient, it's costly to the resources of our law enforcement that need to be at the ready to stand by for other pressing public safety issues, and wonder, can we do this in a different way? So I wanted to share that feedback. Director Freeman.
Yeah, I love all of the comments that have been made. I'm really glad the question that was just asked, because that was a question I was going to ask about, like what actually happens to people who are. I feel like I would have a lot more sympathy for this process if it didn't end up being this, like, okay, we're actually going to arrest you and throw you through the criminal justice system, even if at the end of it sort of works out. Like if there was some way of making it so big with the sheriff's restorative justice program essentially short circuiting into our local wellness tents and things, such that it's like, okay, you have an authority to make an arrest, but you also have the immediate like ability to say that actually, but it's just because we want to bring you to the medical tent in order to have you lie down for a little while, and it doesn't end up going through. And I also, of course, that was having 5 large men with guns doing it is just not helping. And I'm just underscoring what you're saying. I'm not, saying anything new there. But I want to also say it because I think it's just so important to point out that aspect. And so, I mean, and I think it's possible. I mean, I appreciate that cops never want to do this, but I think it's possible to have de-escalated like officers out there. I mean, like if you got, you're not going to solve the problem necessarily. I mean, there's a whole pipeline and staffing and all sorts of problems of solving it's 5 big men, like we're that it's big men, but maybe we can solve the fact that it's 5 big men with guns, and we can make it be like 3 big men wearing that are just carrying around like I say carrying on clubs if it's better, but it just sounds much more brutal. But at the same time, it is better. But like just if we have some, I don't know, it's just the guns is really getting me. Like the guns is really getting me. So,
Director Deschler.
Yeah, thank you. I want to say that I really appreciate the comments from the folks on the board because they have a perspective as being students that some of us don't have, and I appreciate that. Also, can see a perspective of Sheriff's Department coming in and preparing for the worst case scenario and hoping for the best. And I think that is truly what goes on in the preparations. And I love the horses. But I can definitely see, that you have to go above and beyond to make sure that things don't escalate in the ways that they have in the past. When I was walking around on Saturday, I also saw a number of young women that it really concerned me as a mother and as a person who cares about people, I guess. But I felt very concerned about it. And when you showed us the booking area, which I really appreciated, you showing us that process, I could see that there was definitely a level of concern that was going on from the sheriff's perspective of making sure that young people, male and female, were being protected almost from themselves. And yet I also definitely see, and I felt intimidated by the number in the congregation of police officers in certain areas. And I could see as a young woman, and especially not able to take care of yourself, is that being very, very scary. So I just want to say, I just really appreciate your comments on ways that we can perhaps look at this differently and address this differently next year. And one of the things I wanted to ask, and I think my colleagues have said this, is it seems to me that there is a confluence of interest in wanting to make sure that you get people so that they are safe from themselves and aren't potentially getting in worse situations later. And also not having the costs associated with taking people to jail. And I just wonder if that is something that could be addressed next year as actually having a robust triage sobering center that is before an arrest process. And so that people aren't having to go through the jail and the booking process and the sobering process in jail facilities, but are perhaps stay here in Isla Vista. And so that the Sheriff's Department is not spending its resources on transport to jail, booking to jail, but instead people stay here and it's only the truly very serious crimes that are going to jail. So maybe this is something that we can work with the county, with the sheriff's department next year as maybe a different approach.
Thank you, Director Teschler. Director Hobart?
And I just wanted to say that I do really appreciate the police force here for all that you guys do. I know that you know, there's gonna be disagreement and there's gonna be things that maybe I'm not happy about, but at the same time, I can recognize the value that you guys have and what you do here. And I do really hope that going forward, maybe we can collaborate a little bit more in terms of the perspectives that everybody offers here. And additionally with, as I mentioned before, the possibility of a public forum of some sort to kind of hear from some of the community members as well, because I think that it's important for Isla Vista residents to see the police as somebody who protects them and who has their best interest in mind. And I think that not everybody felt that way on Deltopia, and that's why I think that hosting something, allowing people to speak, and really trying to make it clear that that is the number one goal here could be incredibly valuable towards fostering respect and also trust with the police. And as a lot of my colleagues have mentioned too, I do think that it could be very valuable to look into alternatives or compromises or things like that in terms of people who aren't necessarily fully incapacitated to the point of you know, needing medical attention or things like that. Maybe a way to de-escalate versus immediately, you know, arrest or cite, just because I do think that that can also help reduce the amount of people having these interactions with police that can lead to some distrust in the community as well. So I hope that we can maybe discuss that in the future.
Well, as your current and new lieutenant of the foot patrol, and as a former student resident of this community, I could totally respect and I hear everybody's what they're saying, and I do look forward to future collaboration. That's going to be a big deal for me. We're never going to make everybody happy, and unfortunately, some of the past events that have happened here dictate future planning. So it's kind of a balance. It's a very sensitive balance that I recognize, but I do look forward to working with everybody on that.
Thank you.
Director Palat.
I just had another question. So we've talked a lot about public intoxication. I was wondering how these judgments are made. Is it just a subjective judgment by the officer, or is there a breathalyzer?
No, it's not a breathalyzer. That's a common misperception. It's the penal code. It's 647F, the penal code, that says that someone who is intoxicated, a danger to themselves or others, is the definition. So when we make an arrest on that, the deputy or the officer has to articulate why they're a danger to themselves or why they're a danger to others. And it's in that the determination is made. And a judge will look at the probable cause statement that's provided by the deputy or the officer at the time and sign it, which means that it goes into the court process, or they'll reject it, which means the case has been dismissed by the judge right there.
Okay, thank you.
And if I can touch real quickly, because I know you're running on other stuff. I can't, again, as I said before, I can't speak to the observations you've had in the field on each specific one because I don't know what was happening in that, but not all arrests, not all detentions were 647 public intoxication. There was a lot of minor in possession. There was a lot of open container. That was probably the vast majority of the people who didn't actually go to jail were minor in possession and open containers. Those are people who probably weren't intoxicated to a point where they couldn't care for themselves, but you see them getting stopped by the officers and detained on the sidewalk. And that's the majority of what you saw that weren't arrests. To the point of the 5 deputies, yes, that's absolutely something we should look at and can look at. It's challenging to find a balance between officers and protecting the officers in the field, and also the public, and having the people spread out in the right places at the right times. We will be frank, we'll never get it perfect, but we want to come and listen to the comments and concerns and hear your thoughts on this, because though we may not get it perfect, we certainly want to try.
Director C.
This might not be the best question ever, but like when you're arresting someone under the guise of minor possession, if they don't have ID on them, how do you know they're underage?
We don't arrest someone for minor in possession.
Oh,
It's
I
only
mean
a
like
citation.
cite them for.
Well, usually it's because they either provide us their identification, right, or they're honest with us.
Yeah.
Or we catch them in the lie when they're giving us their, fake ID, or they're giving us the wrong information.
What happens if they don't have an ID on them?
We will take all their information down on the citation, and then we check with our records, with our dispatch, who for most people in California either have a driver's license or an ID card.
Oh, so that's like the process that happens like actively.
And that's how we confirm. So they would say, young male, brown hair, I guess your eyes from here, whatever, whatever height you are, your home address or your address here, wherever your car or your voting is registered to, right?
Yeah.
That's so we, that's them,
Okay.
right? And then that's how we.
I think this might be a question for us, but like everyone in IB knows, like, don't sit on a curb, don't have a can out when you're walking on the streets, stuff like that. How can we get it so people know that, like, I didn't know. I mean, I knew that you could get like in trouble or arrested or cited for being drunk and out and like a danger to yourself or others, but like I feel like the line is very easily blurred. And like one person's idea of what is intoxicated and like can't take care of themselves, and another person's like idea of intoxicated and can't take care of themselves may be drastically different. So it's like, how do we like stop the blurring of that line?
This is a great question. Director Freeman might have an answer to that.
Oh, I mean, I have a response to that as I'm answering.
Okay.
The problem that I end up thinking, right, is that like the thing that I would try to explain to people starts with something that is a very difficult position to take for government, which is the idea that like there is a law that states something that you probably think works one way, but there are a lot of cops out there, and those cops are going to interpret it in the field in weird ways. And therefore, you need to be weirdly extra careful and yada, yada, yada. I mean, it just starts turning into this weird like hedge of that, like of trying to define that, because it's not, because I think that when it's something like there's actually an objective measurement, you can be like, yeah, you didn't understand that like this is the objective measure that's used. But when it's a very subjective measurement, it starts turning into this like complaint. It just turns into us complaining about the way the enforcement is done, and so which maybe we should have done, but let me not say have done, but should do. But like also, I think it's weird to do. It's weird to do. So.
While I appreciate the spirit of the question, I do want to keep us on topic, because that is it's such a broad philosophical question that I think might lead us off the agenda item. If you had something to follow up with quickly.
One more question, like when you're in the field on a day like Deltopia, what are you looking for?
Well, one of the things we're not looking for, because you mentioned it, and I try to disabuse people of this myth all the time, is sitting on the curb in Isla Vista is not illegal. Like, it's totally allowed. You can sit on the curb, you can have a seat, you can enjoy yourself. But we frequently hear from people that they think it's illegal to sit on the curb here. What happens is when we end up detaining someone for their safety and ours, we sit them down on the curb once we've contacted them, and then people walk up and see that we're talking to someone on the curb, and somehow that wire got crossed on that years and years and years ago to this urban legend that it's illegal to sit on the curb here. No, feel free to sit. We are not looking for anything in particular. We are there to protect the public by enforcing the laws. And so we have our partners in the fire and EMSA, which are the medical services, who handle the medical side of things. And we are there to assist that, of course, but also to maintain public order. So we're looking for things that are counter to that, which is, fighting in public, public intoxication. Out here in Isla Vista, minor in possession or open containers are part of public order. And so that's what kind of comes at us. But we are not specifically looking for those things. The one thing I would say that maybe is an asterisk to that is that we are looking for the illegal paid parties, the parties selling alcohol, the parties with people on the rooftops, and the parties on the bluffs. That's something we're proactively doing throughout the day. And I didn't touch on this earlier, but this year was the first year, and I'm sure this is what Aaron is going to speak to, is that this is the first year where we conducted search and arrest warrants on a party promoter, a very prolific party promoter here in town. And are building a criminal case against a significant amount of the paid party promoters who are continuing to circumvent the laws, continuing to conspire to make Isla Vista out of public order in that way. And so that's the one thing that we're proactively looking for.
Thank you for that. I want to go back to public comment because I know we had a speaker that was trying to get the tech worked out and I think might have now. So Ms. Doherty, if you're online and want to unmute and give your comment, please feel free.
I absolutely do. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. It was a settings somehow, like the update. I didn't update my settings after the iPhone update. But, I want to go back to 2019 where Jonathan and I were basically the first ones to recommend the potential of changing the, festival ordinances as a way to, try to help with some of the dangerous behavior that goes on. But I do want to say what I witnessed this year, and that's even over last year, was kind of a Wild West cowboy behavior amongst the law officers, where I'm curious if there was a quota mandate to do arrests or citations to cover costs or something along those lines, because that's very much what it seemed like. And just sitting from my office on Pardal, I saw a girl who was leaning up against Isla Vista Deli Mart, fixing her cowboy boots that she probably should not have worn, and then told the cops to leave her alone, and then they arrested her for public intoxication. So, I mean, what is there body cam on all these arrests? That's what I want to know. Like, is there any backup if somebody claims that they were wrongfully arrested? I mean, were those body cams charged? I mean, or are they just as their word against them? And then the second thing I want to bring up is I had emailed you and I've emailed you multiple times, and the police in Isla Vista about trying to get these people that do these illegal party things, that because they're not just throwing parties, they're selling drugs, they're horrible people. And this Asher St. John, who was the one who was throwing this party, we have a lawsuit filed against him for $125,000 for destroying a property of ours. So we're looking for him. So for a search warrant to be served that he was supposed to be at 6653 Del Playa, by the way, Unit 5, which Unit 5, there's 3 German students and 1 American student that lives there, and they weren't even home. They had no idea. Had you guys just called me, I would have told you to look in Unit 4. But I had also informed you that I was over there that evening because I had notice of entry and they weren't setting up for anything. So then just this like whole cowboy behavior of smashing in the door, which by the way resulted in those completely innocent students getting their belongings either stolen or seized. I don't know. I've emailed and asked, but I haven't gotten an answer. Their laptops and stuff are missing. So I don't know. It just seems like it's a bit over the top, and I'm completely supportive of law enforcement. I'm on the board of 1805 and all that, but there has been such a breakdown and lack of communication from the property owners to the police. Like, I have called multiple times asking what I can do, and I've been told, if you call, first of all, if you call Isla Vista Foot Patrol, it says there's no one there. There's no one to take your call. So if you're in an emergency situation, the only option is to call 911. And several times I have called 911, and the officers have come out and they said that it's a landlord-tenant dispute, and that involved people throwing eggs at my workers on the roof because they were taking down their party things that they were putting up. I've just felt really, really unsupported by the police in Isla Vista. And to be completely honest, I felt targeted also for speaking out about it. And I just don't quite know where to go to rebuild this trust, because I do not trust the Isla Vista Foot Patrol right now. I had to independently open up a safe house for sexual assault victims because they were afraid to go to the police because they had been told, when they ask for restraining orders, what are you going to do with a piece of paper? Or, what are you going to, this guy comes after you, you're going to show him a piece of paper, he's not going to go? Or, oh, well, you were on drugs when that happened, so you're not a credible witness. We have no female detectives out there now since Avila left that actually, excuse my language, give a shit about sexual assault victims. And they know to not even go to the police at this point because they don't feel safe. And so there's all this stuff going on and there's no communication. I've emailed multiple times and gotten no response. So there's that.
Thank you for your public comment, Sardi. Oh, and I think we also had a comment over here. Mr. Solis, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Director Brent. My comment is not directly on topic, on the topic that you have shifted to, but the first person who I remember posing the question, what do you do with those people who are iffy? They obviously don't have to go to the hospital. They might still be okay. And it was Director Deschner who first posed that question, and some time went by, and you all figured it out eventually, and you're onto something. And it's that recovery center that's being run by Good Samaritan and routing people there before taking one action or another. It's not just getting detained by the police and getting cited or getting arrested. It's if you prematurely sent them to the hospital and they didn't need to, well, this sort of it's sort of like a little holding dam to better assess people and what their destiny is going to be for the rest of the day. That recovery center, there were the EMT staff nearby, and it's great. It's you're on the right track. So good job. That was really neat to see all of this unfold.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, with that, I'm gonna now close public comment period. And I think this has been a weighty discussion. I appreciate the both of you sitting through this, answering questions, and having tough conversations with us. The theme that I even mentioned when we passed your resolution is we don't always agree, but I appreciate that we have a relationship where we can try to talk through things because nothing gets better. We don't get to a better understanding without dialogue. And so I really appreciate your presence here for that. Of course. And I really appreciate as well all of your work to keep the community safe. It should not go unremarked upon that, you know, there have been a number of very large events across the country over the last year that have gone a very different direction when it comes to violence with vehicles, when it comes to, God forbid, another mass shooting. And it's your work that helps to prevent that from happening. And we really appreciate it. Okay, Director Freeman.
I'm sorry, was that public comment accurate that the sheriff's department broke down the wrong person's door in an attempt at enforcing one of these paid party laws?
The short answer, because it's an active investigation, so I can't speak to it much, is no.
Okay.
I'll also add that we had 2 meetings with property managers in the weeks before Deltopia to seek their input, seek their help, ask for their assistance in spreading the word on that, and Mr. Doherty was at neither of those.
I won't push back.
Okay. Any last words? I think we've talked this one to death. So again, thank you for being here. Thank you for the preparation. I hope that you both get to the West. Just like I hope that first step.
We need to ask Lieutenant Schmidt if he's going to come back.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
I'm not concerned.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Good night.
Okay, we are going to move to item 4.4, community engagement annual report. You've been
Here we
patiently
are.
waiting. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Both are relevant. Happy to be here. I'm going to go as swiftly as I can to respect all of our time. We got a lot of data in here, so I will touch base on all the data points and then just have a lot of freedom for y'all to ask me questions afterwards if there's anything that I went over specifically. So, community engagement. Let's dive right in. Today we're going to talk about our board goals, how that went last year. We'll talk about some new program launches. We'll go into some data about communication, marketing, and outreach. We'll talk a little bit about how we describe campaigns, new projects, and maintenance internally. and how that impacts our accomplishments by quarter. We'll look a little bit at our staff time breakdown, and then we'll look ahead to the next year. So starting off with goals. These are all the goals. I'm going to go through them one by one, so let's just go to the next slide. So out of all the goals, we've completed 3 of them, 3 are in progress, and 1 we have not yet started. So starting first with brand audit. So we all witnessed this together. We did workshop 1, both internally with the board and also with our staff. We have a plan for the rest of everything else. We've created content for phase 2. And we're hoping the next steps for us are going to be hosting our 2nd workshop that analyzes where we are at currently at the district internally. And then we will host workshop 3, which is designing our desired scope of what the brand audit will be. And then we will then shift into our next phase, which is how we will incorporate the community into where our brand is, and more of an outward facing workshopping. Moving forward to cliff safety awareness. So far we've placed advertisements on cliff safety, both on social media during high hazard seasons. We make sure that all the ads are on. We also have consistent outreach to high hazard homes on Oceanside. So every time the county sends us a new list, we make sure to blast that both on social media and to our newsletters. We've also been collaborating with Associated Students and the 2nd District Office to install a memorial on Del Playa. We also consistently update our website, and we collaborate with UCSB Health and Wellness to even create more materials. A couple of new things on the horizon is we hope to revamp our current brochures and some of our content that we've been advertising over the past couple of years. And we also hope to hyperlink a little bit more cliff safety resources broadly onto our website. Moving forward to our emergency response plan, another thing that we have in progress. So far we've been sending out any county alerts through our emailing system every time we hear about an emergency. We also have internal operations emergency responses that we all work together on. Sydney also brought together local experts for a crisis preparedness and resilience planning panel for the last IV community network. We've also been strengthening relationships and building cross collaboration on our responses to emergency efforts. The next step is drafting an implementation plan framework with messaging templates that we will use consistently moving forward. Something that we completed is the digital interactive map of Isla Vista. So not just during Deltopia now, but all year long. You can find any resource that you might be looking for, like community spaces, safety resources, houseless resources, beach access points, book van stops, and there's even a feedback form on our website if there's something missing and that you'd like to add. Next. We also have just developed some really comprehensive CE guidelines in the past year, which we're really proud about. So we've got our quarterly CE planning meetings where the head of each department comes together and talks about the needs for the quarter. And then I take all of that information and create a master plan that our team works on to make sure that we're hitting all of the goals of every single program that we have. And then we create a timeline and a calendar for our social media and our newsletter efforts that we can all agree upon before the quarter even starts, which has been incredibly effective so far. Another goal that we completed was we developed a leadership course. So we had our first course ever as a community service district, CLE for short, but it's our civic leadership initiative, the intersection between local government and community advocacy. I know it's a mouthful, but it's a class, so it's important. We had 23 applicants into the class, 2 nonprofit employees, 2 long-term residents, and then 19 UCSB students. And of those 23 applicants, we had 19 graduates. So we're really happy with the retention rate. All UCSB students that wanted to get credit for the course received 1 unit, thanks to our lovely friends in the Civic Engagement Department at UCSB. And all of our curriculum followed this same model of what is the problem in Isla Vista, what is the IVCSD's approach to this problem, common roadblocks that we face as community workers, and tips and tricks to do it on your own. So we went through all of our programs. We equipped people with all the different knowledge that they can learn from what we've done, and even gave them a starting point to do projects on their own. And we received a lot of positive feedback, as seen on the next slide. One student in particular even said, wow, I think everyone should take this as a GE course, and I agree. Lots of passion, and we got a lot of positive feedback, and I was so happy with the course. It was a ton of fun. So big win for us, I think. Next one in our civic leadership initiative is our community ambassador program. So this is our volunteer initiative. Volunteers agreed to do at least 10 hours of community service for the quarter, and it's been incredibly successful. So our first launch was in the fall, and we had 28 participants. 18 completed all 10 hours, and almost all of them decided to stay within the system and continue to get alerts even past their hours. Some of them even went above and beyond, planned their own events, and wanted to volunteer consistently, even now. So that was really great. And in exchange, they got a goodie bag from us, a letter of recommendation from me, and a dessert and craft networking event with holiday goods. And volunteers supported all of our programs and operations, and even got special awards if they, did like a versatility award, a volunteer thing and everything. We really wanted to make our volunteers special. So those are some of our new programs that we launched. Moving into some data. So our Constant Contact, this is our software that we send out all of our newsletters on. We increased about 200 new subscribers-ish from last year, people who are signing up for newsletters and other outreach materials. We had a total of 85 emails sent with about 26,000 opens and clicks. You can kind of see some of the graphs there. Moving forward, our website. So something that I want to point out that was different than last year. So last year we saw a big spike during Deltopia and a little spike during Halloween. This year we saw consistent spikes throughout the entire year, which means that we're doing something right because people are consistently coming back to our website. We saw roughly 500 users daily, and will spike during Deltopia and Halloween still, but I was really happy to see this more even distribution on our website throughout the year. Diving a little deeper into the website, our website doubled our unique user visits last year, up to 65K from 30K last year. And our website retention has increased with a healthy amount of new and returning users. So that's great as well. For contact us data, we did have less requests than we did last year of people just writing in questions. So last year we had about 154, this year about 136. Could be because we have more information on our website, less questions are coming in, or maybe people are more informed. I'm not sure, but we did see a little decline there. We also had a decline in the amount of press releases that went out. However, click to the next slide, we had a drastic increase in the amount of news and press that we got. We had a 74% increase, I believe, probably from the 2020 is what that number is coming from. Yeah, increase in news articles. So yeah, 89 this year to 51 last year, which is a really great spike. We're noticing that the news is reaching out to us a lot more, and also we're doing a lot more interview style. We'll reach out to the press and then interview and get quotes, and it's been really organic, and we've developed a lot of good relationships, I think, with different news reporters alone. Moving on to Instagram metrics. So we had an increase of 1,724 followers in 2024 alone. And an increase of 133% since 2022. However, 75% of our reach is with non-followers, probably with some of the ads that we have on. So reach goes a lot bigger than the amount of followers. So that's typical. We reached 130K, 103.6K accounts, got to get that out, last year, with jumps in April, May, and October, so our busier seasons. This is in light of the fact that posting frequency went down about 5% compared to 2023. So we're not posting, a million things all the time, but the things that we are posting are still having that high impact, which is really important to us. So speaking of high impact, let's look at some of our top posts by reach. So these are the ones that touch the most people, not necessarily like what had the most likes, but what was able to reach the most people. So we see our Day of the Dead Festival, the Spring Festival, our town hall, something about parking, the Remembrance, the yard sale. Most of all of these were things that had ads on them, which is important to understand that always increases our reach. But when we look at things that are top posts by likes, we have this of my old intern Molly and her Fix It Fair. That was our Santa Barbara Independent collaborative post. The vending machine post got a lot of likes, and we see the memes getting a lot of likes. And I don't want to go into it because it's 2025, but I will say, again, our memes this year did exceptionally well. So I think this is something that we want to keep a consistent part of our engagement strategy because it resonates with our community. And then also we have the yard sale in the bottom corner. Good job, Jenna. Moving on to advertisements. So total number of advertised posts last year was 13. Already talked a little bit about the reach. We spent about $2,000 on advertisements on Instagram, and those top 3 posts were Town Hall, Cliff Safety, and our Spring Festival. 70% of our Instagram followers are women. The most Instagram followers are primarily in 18 to 24, which makes sense with our demographics in Isla Vista that are on social media, and most are from Santa Barbara, Ivy, Toledo as a whole. When looking at Facebook, about 2/3 of our followers are women. It's a little bit of an older age range from 25 to 34, and most followers are from the SoCal area broadly. And we had an increase of 43 followers in 2024 on Facebook. And our reach was down from 8K to 4K to the shift in focus from Facebook to Instagram. So that's the next slide. So we put a little bit of more of our attention on Instagram because we feel that's where most of the students are these days, but we do make sure that a lot of things are cross-posted. But we have no ads on Facebook really. So these are all organic interactions, which is also important to understand. Let's talk a little bit about some of our internal lingo. Oh, photos. Internal lingo. Yeah, sorry. Anyways. So 3 things I'm going to touch on to make it a little more clear on how much time things take that Fiona and I do in order to implement them and to see the lovely products that you see on the other side. So we've got campaigns, which are large scale pushes with major visibility goals. So those are big messages we want to go out. We have new launches and expansions, and then we have operations and maintenance. And I'm going to go through each one briefly. So campaigns are the most time intensive, and they're large scale promotional pushes to increase awareness and engagement around a new or existing event or service. They require a ton of time and collaboration, often either cross-departmental or other partners that we're bringing in, and a ton of materials, lots of Instagram posts, newsletters, web pages, personalized outreach emails, ongoing coordination. Examples of this would be the community ambassador program that we launched, the burglary awareness campaign that we collaborated with Foot Patrol on, and our community care project, which was that large volunteer initiative. The bottom line is that these are our biggest efforts and they're exciting and impactful, but they're very time consuming. The next thing is new launches and expansions. Essentially, this is pretty self-explanatory. It's anything new that we're adding to the district programs or an expanding of the service that we already offer. They still require a lot of new materials because we want to make sure the community knows about them. But it's like website edits rather than creating an entire new website, which we might do for something like a campaign. After the launch, it's a lot more of like a plug and chug where we're just taking that information and then redistributing it out into maintenance. But it does take time to establish what is this new program's brand? What is the consistent post we want to remind people of? How do we frame this in our operations moving forward as we bring it in to our schedules? For example, the compost program expansions for Wednesday, drop-off days and new locations takes a little time to get it going, but once it's going, it's operations. And last but not least, this is pretty self-explanatory. Operations and maintenance is just the things that we do all the time to make sure that we're keeping the community informed on what's going on and what we have. So they require a little, not so much coordination, but it's a lot of like streamlined, let's grab the photo, let's post it, let's make sure we do a quick before and after so people remember the amazing things that IVB is doing in the community. The problem we're running into is that because we're spending so much time on these new projects, expansions, and campaigns, it takes away from the time that we have to continuously remind people of the things that we already do. This is really a concern because it reminds the community that we're consistent, we're reliable, it builds trust and recognition of our core services. And without regular promotion of this ongoing work, people might not know they exist. So then we kind of break it up into quarter. What are the campaigns that went out? What are the new launches and expansions that happen? And then what are the operations and maintenance? I'm not going to go through everything, but I'll pull just like a quick thing of each one. Winter, we did the parking and transportation focus groups as one of our big campaigns. New launches, we had a battle of the bands that year. And then operations and maintenance, you'll see this is consistent pretty much from quarter to quarter. For spring, we launched the Move Out campaign, which is something we do every year. We also had our 10th anniversary remembrance event, was something new that we added. And then we had a lot of spring festival implementation, community spaces weekly posts. Those are some of our more operational and maintenance. Summer, you can see we do a ton of operations and maintenance and website expansions in the summer and a lot less on campaigns. This is when we prep. We prep everything for that relaunch in the fall. So that's why you see way more maintenance, because it's more important for us to get all the materials ready, revamped, so that we can do a big push in the fall. And so closing with fall of 2024, we had our Sweep the Streets campaign. We had our brand audit phase 1 that we did more internally. And then new launches and expansions. We had our first survivor and ally self-care retreat. And then one operations and maintenance thing that stood out is our holiday study hours. We do those every year. We reuse the content and just fluff it up a little. So with all of that, let's talk about Fiona's amazing time. So Fiona is a very busy woman on our team. She is in high demand. Everyone wants Fiona's time because she makes amazing content, and we love that. And it's important for us to look at how that impacts her on the day-to-day and what things are missing because of all of this demand. So you can see on the left, this is her actual time breakdown. She spends about 50% of her time on campaigns right now because we have a lot of things we want the community to know about. We want to make sure that we're getting all that content out, but it takes the most amount of time. We also see that right now she's spending about 30% of her time on new projects. It's amazing that we unleash new projects in IVCSD. We're constantly doing more, and I love that. And it does take a lot of time. And then you can see that that leaves a lot less for maintenance and then outreach efforts. So outreach is when Fiona is actually able to go into the community and do things like canvassing, tabling, etc. Which we have been using more of our volunteer base for, but it is good to also have someone who is an expert on that internally. Ideally, what I'd like to see Fiona's time breakdown as is about 35% campaigns, because they are time consuming, about 20% on new projects, so making sure that we limit the amount of new things we're unleashing per quarter, double the amount of maintenance so that we're making sure that people are remembering what's going on, and then way more time for outreach. Like, it is important for us to be out in the community, and while it's amazing that we have volunteers can do that, it is important for our faces to be there as well. And so making sure that we have time for that. And so to conclude, a couple things that I want us to consider when we're looking ahead. One, a CE intern and or part-time outreach coordinator is needed to help fill these gaps in our service, to help us get out into the community more and help out with coordinating all of these new volunteers that we have all the time, making sure that they have that support as well. I've been doing this, and I will say it is a lot more time than I had originally thought. We are kind of piloting a CE intern right now with some remaining internship budget. So hopefully I'll have a little bit more on how much that's able to help and what that will take off. But I think looking forward into the budget, it is something we should consider for next year. Also internal projects, like for example, the brand audit has been on a goal for ours, I think for a couple of years now. They need more allocated time, which means less time for marketing if we don't find that additional support that I'm talking about. Also, I'm learning that I think more of a budget for content outsourcing for these memes that I keep talking about. I'm learning that they're incredibly successful. I found someone that's really good at it, and it's relatively inexpensive than having someone who's consistently hired to do something like that all the time. And especially for special projects like Deltopia, Halloween, and any of those other high traffic seasons when we're already really busy. Timeline guidelines. This is a big thing that I want to be a little bit more strict on internally, is when we have a new project or a new idea, we're going to think 2 quarters ahead is what I'd like us to get to. Is one corner of planning. It's the idea. It's where we're brainstorming. We're getting all the quirks out. The next quarter is drafting the content. That's where Fiona can create all of the content, send it to feedback internally. And then the third quarter is when we launch and we publish and we share everything with the community. So I know it's a long timeline, but when we rush things and we say, this is our new idea, we need it out this week, the quality of work is going to go down, and the amount that we're actually going to be able to outreach and push during that quarter is also going to go down. So it's important for us to really think about 3 quarters ahead, right? So what do we need 3 quarters from now? Let's start planning that now. And last but not least, these guidelines will help ensure our consistency and our work output so that we can have enough time to execute all of these needs of our amazing and fabulous, hardworking team that has so many things that they do. And that's all. I went through as fast as possible. So I'll leave it there and open up for questions.
Thank you very much. Questions from the board? Director Freeman.
The website stats thing had spikes that looked like they were all at the beginning of the month. Have you looked into why that might be?
It could be
Yeah,
a lot of
could be.
new things we unleash, I feel like, in the beginning of the month, because like, for example, like in the beginning of the quarter, we're unleashing like new programs and stuff, which we do funnel a lot of people back to the website. So I could see that as potential, but other than that, no, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, just I feel like it might be interesting to look at the resource. I mean, you had an interesting idea just then that people registering new events at the beginning of the month or something. That was
Yeah,
that was
signing
like-
up, signing up for community room.
Yeah, I was just, I mean, it just seems like because the spikes are at the beginning of each, and then there's like, just like a, like much lower, and it also might be interesting to make that chart, but for the rest of the month, like to, because of the, or to use a log, actually, yeah, I take that back, use a log scale in that graph. Because what's happening is that we're not actually seeing the differences month to month anymore in that graph. It just looks like a flat line at the bottom, and then these giant spikes. So we can kind of compare the spikes, but we can't compare anymore the actual like underlying signal. I think if I was going to say to exclude like the first few days of the month, that's like you can use use the log of the number of visitors on the as the y-axis and fix that. On the news thing, I felt like I had to ask. I'm very certain this is a very good answer, but I just had to ask you, like the amount of PR we're doing is going down, the number of news reports is going up. It's good news, right?
It's good
news. Okay.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
It's a great question. Yeah, no, it is good news. I just, like I said, like, I think the press we're reaching out to them sometimes more casually than putting out like we're always professional, but like a standard press release. And we're doing a lot more like organic interviews and getting a lot more like TV airtime and things like that I am seeing is really effective in getting our message out too. So we're just seeing a little bit more of that than press releases that we're sending out.
I was just, what was going through my mind is the headline that I saw from a San Francisco publication: California officials brace for legendary rager at America's #1 party school. And that was going around everywhere, and I was just like, oh yeah, we're getting so much more news.
I wouldn't count in this list.
It has
Because
to
it's
say
Halloween,
IVCSD.
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah. It does have to say our full name in order for it to ping us even. So if they don't say Isla Vista Community Service District, like maybe if it says Isla Vista Community, we still don't count that unless it's like us, our whole name.
Okay, and then the other thing I wanted to say is that I've been saying this for, maybe the entire time the district has existed, but I have a channel that has all the videos of all the meetings. I would love to give it to the district if the district would
There's a
like
high
to
demand.
have it.
Now we have to. Now we have to.
You don't. Wait, there's a state law that.
That's not the reason. We'll figure it out.
Okay,
We'll
okay.
figure it out.
And then it could be that's why they can't take it, for all I know, that there's a new state law that says, but I would love to give it to the district. So the district has that channel. Also, as far as like the processes for recording, for a while, when I would describe what I was doing, I was using like some rather complicated software that I'd written that was like doing it all headless on a server and everything. But there's a really easy way of doing it. And honestly, I started doing the easier way of doing it because I used to do the easy way of doing it. I'm doing it again because that software kept breaking every time Zoom would release a forced update. And so and you just need to have, the main thing is you have to you'd have like another laptop that was just like the streaming laptop or something, and you could just stream it. Really easy to do it during the meeting. And I'm happy to help with that. Also, for what it's worth, I'm leaving, but I'm also happy to continue recording things for a while until you figure out how to do it. So you don't have to worry about that. There's not like a shot clock that suddenly occurred that you've got 2 months left and then there's gonna be no meeting recording. That happens whether or not you take the channel either, but I would really love to give you the channel. And there's and for what it's worth, the videos that I'd all put on previously, there isn't like IVCSD branding on any of the actual videos. It's only on the channel header. You can remove that. You can put whatever you want there. You can swap the usernames around because the usernames are all malleable. So you can put so
We need to meet.
great.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
Okay, other questions or feedback from the board? Director Dashler.
I'd like to say that this is a really impressive presentation. What's more impressive is the work that you all do. I mean, it's amazing. I'm just the high quality of the content that you put out, the graphic design, it's so enticing. It's fun, it reflects the community. I'm just so impressed with the work you do. I'm really impressed that you are able to have the discipline to think 3 quarters ahead. It's really easy to get caught in the moment and have to put out things really quickly. And if you are able to actually look far ahead to do that, it's an incredible skill. And I'd love to learn how you do it. I wanted to ask you something that I always kind of focus on, and I think I actually even mentioned it at last week's meeting, and that is this idea of pushing out emergency, I'm going to find it in here, emergency information. Well, when I get emergency alerts, no matter what the time, I send it to Spencer and to Jonathan. Spencer's always sleeping. Jonathan gets it. Well, you were sleeping that one night. It was like 1 a.m.
No,
So.
I slept through the shoot.
But I just wonder, so I just wanted to bring that up because it's something that's always on my mind. I think we're going to talk about it at a later date. Do you push out that content that comes out from UCSB on the Clary messages at any time? Never. Okay. And then the other thing I wanted to ask is 2 things. One is there a next door that's kind of like the Facebook for community in Isla Vista? There is? Okay, yeah. Cool. And then the other thing is have you thought about using TikTok? And have you, or more, maybe to substitute Facebook? And do you anticipate doing any like proactive disinformation campaigns with the pro Deltopia crowd? Because there's a lot of TikToks on Deltopia.
Yeah, TikTok was something that I dipped my toes into maybe a year ago. And we saw a little bit of success. I wouldn't say our memes are as strong as they are now. So let me preface that. I think we would do a lot better now with the support that we got from that. But it was really hard for us to reach. It was really hard for us to get into the TikTok algorithm, probably lack of experience. And we found a lot more success on Instagram Reels. But I don't want to close off that door because I know that TikTok is still used, especially on the Deltopia messaging side of things. I think I was a little bit deterred from the last time that we tried, but I'm open to it.
So can you use Instagram? Can you use the content of Instagram Reels on TikTok? You can. Okay.
I will say that I've done a little research in the fact that the algorithms are a little bit different in the sense of like what TikTok prioritizes instead of Instagram. So Instagram's algorithm really likes things that have like more of like a personal connection. So have some type of engagement with a human being, right? TikTok obviously likes humans as well, but you have to get like straight to the point of like what you want and then go backwards from there. So like Instagram's more of like, I'm watching this because you're a person and I want to listen to what you as a person have to say. And TikTok's like, I want to know what you have to say right away. And then I'll decide if I want to stay and listen.
Interesting.
Which is interesting. It's just a little bit different how the algorithm works. So we could use the same content and it could do really well. But if we really want to do TikTok, I would want to hire someone that's like specialized in that type of content.
And don't argue with success. I mean, your Instagram is killing it, right? So, but I just am so impressed with you all, what you're doing. It's just been such a wonderful thing to see you grow this department. So thank you for all your work.
Thank you.
Director Hilbert.
Yeah, I was gonna, for the TikTok point, I do think it is a little bit complicated because I feel like the kind of content is just so much different. Like I don't have TikTok currently, but when I did have it, you're not really seeing as much like informational almost videos, you know what I mean? It's like anything I've seen about UCSB has been like short clips of like the beach or parties or things like that. So I think that's where it's kind of hard. Like, how do you put IVCSD into that realm of things while keeping it like focused on IVCSD, I guess. But I do think like it could be something cool to explore, but like you said, I think hiring somebody that is specifically tailored to that would probably be the best option, just because it's such a different, it sounds silly because it's all social media, but like it is just so much different. And yeah, it's similar. You guys are doing awesome work, so thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, it's so crazy how different TikTok is. It's the same thing, but it's so different.
Yeah.
But I like this task. So I think we might dive into it.
I wanted to share, I got a lot of compliments on the influencer content that you guys hired for Delta. And I think I've never thought that I would hear the words, our meme game wasn't as strong last year, other than but it's just so indicative of the fact that you and your entire strategies meet people where they're at. And I love it. I do think it's effective.
Yeah, really great.
I also, the thing I'm most proud that you accomplished this year was CLE and bringing that class together. You know, I thought that, I think in general, we should never overlook all of the in-person communication bonds, one-to-one, peer-to-peer communication. I think that that is really how we drive the message home with our real life influencers in Isla Vista, the people that are having conversations with their friends that are leaders in their community. So I hope that we can find a way to continue that in future instances. And I know the collaboration with, I believe it was the Religious Studies Department, allowed people to receive a credit, and it would be so awesome.
Yeah. Well, it was through Viviana and Katya's civic engagement class, but even their class is accredited through Religious Studies Department.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Oh.
So yeah, thankfully to them that we were able to get that credit.
The more that we can figure out how to grow that partnership and maybe even enlist UCSB lecturers to assist you in that, I think that that would be really awesome. I know as a student that taking a 1-unit class with a history professor about Isla Vista was one of the things that really cemented for me that I wanted to get involved in the community. And so I think that, and there's others, obviously Katya and Viviana's class about civic engagement, Dan Clemens' class in environmental studies about Isla Vista and the master plan. Like there's all these separate ones in pockets right now, and we're at a high point because there was also used to be an Isla Vista politics class, and that no longer happens. And so now we've got like these 3 different ones that kind of are all touching on Isla Vista in one way or another. The more that we can build that bridge, I think is awesome. There's so much expertise and talent at the university, and when they're down on the ground in the community and not in the ivory tower, it makes a huge difference for us. And the last thing I was going to say is that you definitely have my support in being more selective in outside campaigns. I know and we're guilty of this too as the board. If something comes up and it's like, oh, this is a big issue, we gotta address this right now. And I think it's definitely okay for you to be more of a supporting role on things like burglary outreach or things like that. Because I know that there's only a certain amount of time in the day and hours in the day to accomplish these things. So I think that is a smart decision.
Thank you. That means a lot. And I have also loved CLE. And it was very much a team effort. So I want to also just uplift our team. Every single person on our team spoke in one of those classes, led one of the classes, helped develop the curriculum for the thing that they were passionate about. So there's also this really cool thing for us as a team to really reflect on all that we've done so far as a district, and then to be able to inspire people and things that they were passionate about. It was so cool to see. So I'm really excited to do it again.
Director Freeman.
First quick thing, for the record, the legendary Rager article did mention us by name in a positive way, that the Isla Vista Community Service District has launched a recovery center in partnership with the nonprofit Good Samaritan Shelter that will offer food, water, and a safe place to rest. The Community Service District also plans to deploy stations throughout the area to provide basic first aid, resource any. So
I'll take it. Good press.
That article was in there.
That article, good press.
Yeah. So back when we were doing the AB3 meetings in order to figure out what the district would do, one of the things that I was very excited about the district one day do is to essentially be a public information officer for the area of Isla Vista. And I really feel like the district has accomplished that. And that really makes me happy, because of all the things that we might end up doing concretely, it just felt like that was the thing that was so missing. There might be other government agencies that will step in and will try to handle services in various forms, but no one was doing the public information officer for the area of Isla Vista well, and now we have that. So that is amazing. The other thing I wanted to say is, as soon after the district got constructed, we formed a subcommittee that include, I think it was an ad hoc committee, and I think the only two board members on it were myself and the late director, Hodges. And we had worked specifically as a community engagement committee, and the point of the committee was to attempt to construct some kind of manual for how to do community engagement, and how to work with press and how to do all this sorts of stuff. And for what it's worth, this is one of those stories that involves Jay didn't do the thing that Jay was supposed to do, which is that Jay's got like various notes and recordings of things and like all sorts of stuff that and this dream that one day I will successfully do the work that we did not complete during that committee, and then sadly we did not complete during the life of John. But in order to work on constructing the manual, but honestly, you're doing it all. I mean, like everything that I can think of, remember it, and you're doing it. You're doing it extremely well, and so I'm just so happy that with what the district is doing with respect to community engagement. So
You're off the hook.
yeah.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to us.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Okay, well then with that, we'll receive the presentation. I should do public comment. Is there any public comment on this item? I just want to go ahead.
Just want to reiterate, Chief did a fantastic job, and all of the staff, you all have done a great, fantastic job this year.
Thank you for the comment, and thank you for your participation in CLEAN. Oh, Fiona, go ahead.
And I just want to echo that Maya just does the most amazing job. Like, I don't know how you do everything that you do, and you make Maya's life so much easier. And I don't know why I'm tearing up, but she's just like such a supportive boss.
Yay.
And she's just the best. And I'm really glad that she's here.
Oh.
You're gonna make us tear up too.
So sweet.
Thank you for that very heartfelt.
Yeah, very sweet.
I just realized I think I mispronounced his name. It's Hedges, not Hodges.
Hedges.
Hedges. Thank you. I'm so bad at names, and I really wanted to say this.
Okay, we've received the report. We thank you for the report, and we are going to move on to item 4.5, the Compost Collective Annual Report.
All right, we'll get this one going. Yeah, on the last one, a lot of governments tell us that we're the best. They all tell us we'd like to be like you. So we are there. Doing good.
Okay, this will be pretty quick. So, 2024-25 annual report. What I want to go over real quickly first is next slide. Thank you, Jonathan. As most of you know that the Compost Collective has been in a very transitionary phase, especially in the past year. So just a reminder of that we did stop door-to-door collections in August 2024. And since then, our focus has been on ensuring accessible food scrap drop-off opportunities, as well as, of course, creating consistent opportunities for community engagement and education. So it wasn't until recently that we kind of gone on a consistent path and created a new structure, and we've learned a lot from that, and we have a clear picture on how we should be moving forward. So that's super exciting. But we'll move to sales and revenue, please. So as you know, we've recently started selling compost, and with the transitionary phase in the past year, it hasn't been the main focus. However, we have earned over $2,000 in revenue. You could see how many small bags versus large bags were sold, and all of the retailers who sell our product. That's super exciting. I think that going forward, our focus is going to be getting this compost into the ground. So I think that we want to focus on selling bulk rather than going to individual stores and selling on a smaller scale. So essentially spending less time on the sales aspect, but making sure that we're distributing more. Next slide, please. So bucket rentals, super quick. This is a program that an initiative that we started doing in the beginning of November, where residents can rent buckets from us, either 5-gallon or 2-gallon buckets. And it actually has been pretty popular. The goal is that they return the buckets to us at the end of the school year. And I think that a lot of the people who participate in our program, they value reusing and recycling, and that is the incentive for them to bring us back their buckets, because they will not be receiving their money back, unfortunately. So next, remote drop-off locations. As I mentioned, now that we're not doing door-to-door collections, how do we make it as easy as possible for everybody throughout Isla Vista to participate? So something new that we've implemented is community center drop-off days every Wednesday from 1 to 3. We're in front of the community center, accepting food scraps, as well as renting out buckets and just talking about the program in general. Coming very soon is we are going to be having a permanent location on Pardal, right near the flyer kiosk. That's something that's taken us a lot of time because we want to be very specific with our signage. And I think once you see the design that we made, you'll be really excited. Coming soon, and this was a very long process of getting approval for, but we will be tabling every Tuesday at Walter Capps, doing the same thing we've been doing at the community center. But the reason this is hopefully going to be more successful is that people who participated in our door-to-door collections tended to live more in that area of Isla Vista. So we're really excited to be able to provide a convenient opportunity for residents over on that side of Isla Vista. So next is just a little map showing where we provide our drop-off services. The little red pins are permanent locations. The one on Pardal is obviously not there yet. And then the orange ones are temporary, just tabling events, same time, same day every week. But our goal is to focus on getting permanent drop-off bins. In the locations where we can't do that, we will do our best to get some consistent temporary opportunities going. But eventually we would like to see evenly spread out red markers on this map. So next is volunteer opportunities. Volunteerism has always been a big part of IVCC, but we really want to make it an even bigger part going forward. So you could see the events that we offered this year. There were a lot, and we were lucky enough to have several partners. It's important to note, as I've highlighted the event on the right, the events that we hosted where we had organizations or clubs involved were the ones with the highest turnout. So going forward, we really want to focus on pairing opportunities with an organization or a club. But bottom line is we had a pretty good turnout of volunteers. And I just want to say that our Thursday pile maintenance days, these are something new we started doing last November. And every Thursday from 1 to 3, anybody can join us at St. Mike's while we are building compost piles. The great thing about this is that we're already out doing that. So it's not like our staff time is being used specifically for the volunteer opportunity. It's just we're always out there at that time doing a task that needs to be done. So that is why we've had 19 of those since November, and they've actually been pretty consistently successful. So next is community involvement. Something really special about this program is just how known we are throughout the community. People look to us for advice, and they just love what we do. So we do a number of things like speaking at classes or with organizations, tabling a lot, and assisting with environmental related events and seminars. So this is just a list of some of the organizations and events where we've tabled. One thing I do want to mention that's super cool is Richard partnered with Explore Ecology to go to Ivy Elementary and create a compost pile. So that is a relationship that we really want to focus on, definitely going forward. But you can just see that we're very, very involved and known throughout the community because most of the time we are being contacted to come speak, to come table. So that's awesome. Next is seasonal initiatives. Of course, our Food on Wheels, over 1,500 pounds of edible food was collected during move out time. Now we have combined the donation service that was originally started with the Isla Vista Beautiful program and Food on Wheels. So any time of the year, we will accept edible food, but of course, we're going to push it towards the end of the year. This past year, we did a pumpkin pickup so people could sign up for us to come grab their pumpkins from their doorsteps. We composted them. So we got 40 pumpkins this past year, but with both of these seasonal initiatives, we definitely want to focus on going door to door and actually speaking to people because we realized that yields the greatest output. So next is, of course, food scrap data and analysis. This past year, we've had our highest amount of food scraps collected, so over 27,000 pounds of food scraps. This is keeping in mind that door-to-door collections were stopped August 28th. So next year, we may not see as much, but that's okay. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but you can see what impact the diversion of these food scraps had. And I think it's like invaluable. So next is a graph that I made just to show when we were doing drop off versus not doing, or when we were doing pickup versus not doing door-to-door collection. So where the little red line is, you could see it's drop off only, people have to come to us. Then green line, of course, our numbers go way up. It's when we're doing door-to-door collection. Then again, we're doing drop off only. So what this graph tells me is obviously not doing door to door is going to make it so that we have less food scraps. However, we are receiving more this time around of ceasing collections than we did last time. So it's seeming like things are becoming more stable and regular, which is really good news. So next we have total, because I know that was one of the ward goals. So since 2018, we have diverted over 120,000 pounds of food waste. That's crazy. And this is some of the impact. And by the way, when I say 480 refrigerators, it's the weight of 480 refrigerators. But next, I just want to emphasize a really important aspect of this program that I think maybe isn't talked about as much. And it's the fact that through operating this program, we're ensuring that money and precious resources are staying within our community rather than being outsourced, rather than going to the big trash hauling companies. So you could just see in this little diagram or whatever you want to call it, rather than our food scraps going out, us paying someone else to take them out of the community so that they can make a product and then sell that further out of the community for their profit, we're keeping all of the profit and all of the resources in our own community. So I think that's really special and empowering. So next is just some operational improvements. Thanks to our CE team, I believe it was their continued educational campaigns. Participants have been placing fewer contaminants, so fewer things that shouldn't be in our drop-off bins in the bins. So for example, fewer instances of dairy, meat, coffee pods, etc. being placed in our drop-off bins. That's awesome. Also, thanks to Richard, we've adjusted our recipe so we use more carbon material, and that's caused our compost to become higher quality. Much of this carbon material is actually items taken from our office, like shredded paper and cardboard, which is something that I really want to explore a lot more going forward. Also, we were able to create a compost curing station at St. Mike's, so that allows our compost to sit. That way we can have more compost at one time, and the longer compost sits, the better it gets. That's awesome. You could see photos of how successful our compost is looking right now. So next is just a time breakdown. A lot of time, obviously Richard delegates, he manages our team, but he also does quality control, checking to make sure that there's nothing bad in our product, making sure that the temperature and consistency is correct, also helping with my pile maintenance. And then the rest of our team, they run volunteer and drop-off days. And then of course they run the piles and process the food scraps. So next is me. I do mostly communication between me and Richard and organizations, and also of course lots of meetings, research. We've just started to dive into grant writing a little bit, but mostly what I do is big picture planning. So next is the future of the compost collective. So given all of that, I just on this slide briefly mentioned some of our goals that we have moving forward. In order to accomplish those goals, next slide, please. As I talked about before, I think it's super important for us to prioritize getting this compost into the ground, because that is very important. Why would we make it if we're just going to hold on to it? We want to increase distribution because it will make the soil healthier and contribute towards our mission overall. So as I had said before, our pivot this year is we want to maintain relationships with the stores that already sell our compost, but we want to prioritize bulk sales rather than getting more smaller stores to sell. We also want to educate about and encourage the use of compost extract, because that's just another means of getting it into the ground. So next, in boosting community engagement and education, we obviously want to focus on educating residents on food waste reduction, our services, and even hopefully home composting. In order to do that, I want to create improved educational materials with more focused messaging, hopefully incorporate educational components into all of our volunteer events. So we have like a robust maybe script that we say to everybody who comes to participate in volunteer events with us. Of course, improve community access. Richard is going to begin being more accessible to the community, essentially. So people can ask him questions about our compost, their compost, soil, but we just want to make it so that it's easier for the public to access us for more specialized information. We also want to try and think about how we can create formulas regarding how residents can compost at home. And by doing that, we want to consider, the lifestyle of Isla Vista residents and create really easy instructions for them to do so. Because eventually the goal is to have multiple locations where composting is taking place. Then of course we want to establish a consistent tabling schedule. So next, continuing on education and engagement, we want to boost participation in volunteer opportunities and workshops. So I want to do this by having more partnerships with organizations. I think that if we get an organization to partner with us for each of our Thursday volunteer events every week, we will have a really good consistent turnout. Also want to piggyback off of events that other organizations are putting on. And provide new opportunities every quarter that are a bit different from opportunities we've provided in the past. Because something that we see is that if we host a new event, people are really interested to find out what that event is all about. But then as we continue to host that event moving forward, the turnout is just a bit less. So we want to try and innovate, come up with opportunities that pique people's interest. And then, of course, offering incentives is always a great idea. So almost lastly, we of course want to focus on making participation convenient and consistent by maximizing food scrap collection under this new drop-off only system. This is pretty straightforward. I want to try and get as many permanent drop-off bins as possible, and well, as possible, but also evenly distributed throughout the community. I want to establish consistent food scrap drop-off tabling opportunities where we can't implement permanent bins. And I want to look into partnering with restaurants and apartment complexes where large amounts of food waste is produced. So last slide, just really quick, my goal is to pivot to a holistic approach, touching on all aspects of this cycle, rather than just the composting, but making sure we're teaching people the importance about buying local, about not wasting food in the first place, and getting that compost into the ground. So that's my report. Questions, comments?
Thank you very much for the presentation. Any questions? Director Hobart.
Do you guys reach out directly to like the club sports teams about volunteer events currently?
So a lot of the times they actually come to us. Of course, we really advertise our opportunities a lot. And when big events are happening, I know Fiona will DM a lot of orgs on Instagram, but I think just being more intentional moving forward is a good direction to go in.
I do know that any of the club sports teams that are through the school, I think they have requirements for their volunteer hours. So that might be a good one. I know you said they reach out, but maybe like, I don't know, DMing them on Instagram or something like that, and just saying like, if you want volunteer opportunities this quarter, like here's some options, just because I know like they have a quota, I think, every quarter of what they have to do with their teams, like receive funding.
Same with Greenway.
Yeah.
That's great feedback. And I think that that is a resource that we haven't fully taken advantage of yet. I totally agree that we should intentionally reach out to them, give them all of the days that we're providing these opportunities, and see if they're willing to commit to one of the days of the week. I love that.
Other questions? Director Dutch.
I wanted to ask on the 25-26 goals, when you say reduce tonnage leaving Isla Vista in Marburg trucks, does you mean reduce compost or just all trash in general?
All trash in general. So it would apply to our waste reduction efforts in terms of furniture and household items, but it also applies to edible food and food that could be composted locally.
And will you be able to measure that? I mean, does that assume then Marburg's gonna communicate what is leaving IV? I just don't know, how do you measure that?
Well, the amount of pounds that we have composted in food scraps, it would have gone out of our community had we not done this program.
Got it.
In terms of items, I think that a lot of items would go in to the trash potentially, but there's no way of proving that because they could maybe also donate them. But definitely in terms of food scraps, all the food scraps that we are processing, they would have made it into the trash can and
got it
out.
So Marburg, I know I should know this. So Marburg doesn't have any compost program in IV, except for what gets put in the trash.
Yeah, they do it
all mixed
Tahigas.
together.
Yeah.
And the restaurants, no.
They're
composting?
subscribed to Marburg, some of them. I don't know how.
Do they have a separate container? for
Yes,
compost?
so restaurants, they have to have a separate bin,
Mhm.
and then residential, it gets sorted out
Yeah.
theoretically, but it's very contaminated because it all
Right.
goes to the same bin.
Right,
And
got
their
it.
method of composting is not like ours.
Got it, got it. Awesome. And what is compost extract?
So if Richard could probably speak more to that, but I know what it is.
Oh.
It's just getting compost and mixing it in water so that you have like a rich liquid and spraying it on lawns, plants. Does that cover it?
Yeah, it's essentially just getting the microbes that are in this compost that we created into liquid form so that we can apply it.
Got it. Got it. And do we do anything with worms here?
We used to, but not since I've been.
We have an abundance of worms in our piles, and our piles are pretty much worm bins themselves now.
Yeah.
And whenever we have sifting days, we just have them gather them up and they just go right back into a pile that's been sitting. Although it would be interesting to explore the market of worms themselves.
I'm just curious.
But yeah.
Cool, thank you.
I had a question about the drop-off days. How is the utilization of that going compared to the permanent location?
It's not great. I think that we've made it a consistent opportunity. So it's every Wednesday, 1 to 3. And as time has gone on, it's been utilized more. So proving that consistency is key. However, I anticipate that the permanent bin that's going to be installed on Pardal is going to get way more consistent use because it's available around the clock. But definitely mass majority of our food scraps get dropped off at Methodist and St. Mark.
Yeah, I mean, that just makes sense to me because they're open 24/7 and
Yeah.
and it, but I ask because I'm thinking it's cheaper too because you don't have to have people staff it. But I understand there's a balance because you want to meet people where they're at. I also just wanted to compliment you on a partnership with Ivy Elementary School. I think that is really, really cool.
Yeah.
And I know that got some positive feedback from folks that are parents there about that. So thank you for your work partnering with them. And yeah, I'll leave my comments there. Director Hobart.
I had one more question. Do you guys ever like go to classes and talk at the beginning of class about like the compost program?
Not necessarily a concerted effort to go beforehand. I love that idea. I think that's great. We've just mostly been invited to give lectures. But I do love the idea of that, even for the IVCSD as a whole, I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, I think that I think that a lot of different major departments it would be good to go and talk, but specifically with like environmental studies, I'm sure there would be a lot of passion for that. So I just thought that might be like an interesting thing to explore because I know there's some pretty big classes within that department where, yeah, we could be reaching, 500 people at once and like sharing what it is. And like within those 500, there might be some that are interested in like getting a bucket, things like that.
I love that idea.
Any other comments or questions?
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
That made me think of something brilliant, and I'll attribute it to you. But you know how we're always talking about Gaucho FYI, and that we want more information to be given about IV and IVCSD and Gaucho FYI, and Student Affairs always says, no, you can't have any more time. You can only have whatever. So what about the idea in kind of community engagement of doing our own type of beginning of the year, one IVCSD 101, that's not necessarily a long commitment, but like something like that. So that's all. So I just thought it just came into my brain courtesy of you.
Yeah, I think I like that idea, and I feel like we heard
Have
about
we
they
talked
did that
about
in the
this?
70s.
When we were
The
when we were
70s?
on the boat for Dallas's fundraiser in 2016, we were talking about that with somebody of setting up an IV orientation.
I guess that
maybe it
person-
was an old thing.
That
but
person must have been
they
an
must have
IV
been an
alum,
old
which is
timer.
why
Yeah.
I thought about that.
It wasn't me.
I mean, I do think that could be interesting. I will say with the Gaucho FYI, almost no students actually watch it. At least anybody that I
This is so
know,
bad.
and myself included,
Yeah.
put it on and did other things in the background, but you know,
That
maybe
is
that's
really
not
fun.
everybody, but I will say.
Back in our day, they made us go in person.
Yeah.
and They
Yeah.
made us pay
Yeah.
attention.
Which would be
was a lot
definitely
better.
more effective.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the idea of doing something with IV, I mean, I think that could be really cool, like even if it was kind of like a door stopper situation, like at the beginning of the year, just like around IV, like, hey, if anyone, you know, wants to come learn more about like this resource that you guys have, like as residents here, I'm
Yeah.
sure that there would be some turnout, and that would be an in-person, so, you know, nobody's
Yeah.
just having it play in the background on their screen, but yeah.
And we can have pizza.
Yeah.
We didn't stop on the tour, but with Viviana.
Yeah, we did something called IV tours
Yeah.
for a couple of years where people would come, like basically it would be like a walking group of freshmen and they would like walk to like IVCSD and IVRPD and we would like talk about
So
the
cute.
amazing things. But honestly, it wasn't too popular. Like even though we had free pizza, it wasn't popular. So then we tried to switch it to like a community games thing where like you can come play games, meet people, and we'll like tell you about our resources. That also wasn't very popular. Like it's hard for us, I think, also to like get people to come to us. But I love the idea of you said of like doing like a door hanger, like a door stopper or something at the beginning of the year. That's like, hey, we're your local government.
Totally.
Oh,
Look at us.
Since the like the Deltopia door hangers were like a big hit.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Don't
know,
feel
it's
bad. It's
gone.
hard. No one has success getting people to come to resource fairs.
Right?
Those
Is
are
that
just,
right?
it's-
Yeah.
I just have always felt like those are put on because we don't have an answer for communicating with people.
Right.
And it's like, well, we're doing something. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. But then they flock in thousands to like things like Utopia, which is why I'm trying to like, you know, make that a resource fair.
I love how this
Yeah.
got all the way like.
Sorry,
back
I
to
know.
community
Continue.
engagement.
Yeah, and that's something that we could even kind of try to bring it into, like, if we, you know, as directors, or whatever, are going into classes, like, one of the first things you can say is like, did you get a free taco on Deltopia? Because, you know, that's our event, like, cause, you know, you wanna like try to get people to be like, oh, that's you guys, like, you guys were
Yeah.
this thing that I went to, because so many people that were at our spring festival have no clue that IVCSD put it on. They just heard that there was free food. So that's where I think it could be good to kind of try to like really highlight those big things that lots of people go to, and then they can be like, oh, right, like, okay, now I know who you guys are. But yeah, I definitely think something along those lines, not a Zoom meeting, because yeah, those will not be.
Yeah.
I bet some people probably think it's AS
Yeah.
in the park.
Exactly.
It's probably.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm getting us back on topic. Any other comments about compost collection? I'll open up public comment. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I like Director Hubbard's idea of reaching out to the students, to classes. And it's kind of funny that it's the compost collective program that is bringing this issue up, because she mentioned environmental studies students, horticulture, biology students, not just from UCSB, from City College. Reaching out to them about the composting activities is a good thing. Is a good thing. I will put this out early on. One of the organizations I work with, the WEED Task Force, has a really big interest in this composting collective and getting students motivated to get into a growing competition and using the compost. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for your comment. Anything online? Okay, closing public comment. Any final thoughts from the board? Dr.
I
Dutcher?
forgot to ask a question. You know, there's been so much changes in this program over the last year, and I just would be interested in you all on, do you feel like this is moving in the right direction? And do you have any feedback from us on, besides your presentation, is there any feedback that you have from us on if there's something that's not working that you would like us to relook at?
I think that a more holistic approach is a really great idea. And unfortunately, we can't compare our progress going forward to anything that's happened in the past because it's going to be so different. But I think that ultimately, once we get this drop-off model going, once we have more opportunities to drop off around the community, I think that we can maybe not match the numbers that we had when we were doing door-to-door collection, but I think that we can get to like a really healthy balance, not having to spend so much time collecting because people are coming to us, and therefore we get to spend time on other aspects of that cycle that I mentioned to you. So I think so, and I think that in the next year, once we have had implemented this new structure for a good amount of time, we'll be able to see that.
I just want to make a comment. I'm excited that it's allowed us to focus on these drop-off models, but perhaps even going into the homes of the residents. We did a survey this summer of when we paused collections, and out of 32 responses, 9 said that they would allow a compost pile on their property, and that's just like I think that's invaluable. Not only from engagement, but it's like, oh yeah, this block has a pile there or something. And I think it's just I think it's what the community scale model requires, and the fact that we have the ability to employ that here is something that has probably yet to be seen in California, especially because we're encroaching on such with SB 1388, or I forget what the measure was, but once they start giving out fines, it's going to be taken a lot more serious. So it's just interesting that even though we're not a county licensed permit holder to process material, that we're able to do it at this scale. So yeah, getting into the house I think is going to be invaluable. But not only that, as we continue, we're becoming more engaged with UCSB, talking to Liz Carlisle's class, which is probably the main class that we speak to, the EAB breakout sessions or something that we also do. But yeah, I just want to see more of the scientifics, analyze our compost and get more of the scientific community behind it. And I think that this transition has allowed us to focus more on that. And so excellent.
Thank you.
Those are good comments, but we'll have to keep that in mind because we know that there's a lot of new construction happening in the community. So maybe this is an ask that gets tacked onto those projects, new piles. Okay, I want to thank you, Jenna, for waiting very patiently to give this presentation, doing an excellent job. Oh, and I think we closed public comment, sorry. Okay, we are going to move to the next item on our agenda, which I lost my agenda. Sorry.
Reports from members of the board.
Reports from board members. Any reports to be given? Director Freeman.
Once again, the Santa Barbara County local chapter of the California Special Districts Association is having its meeting at the end of the fourth Monday of this month, whatever date that is, at the Frog Bar and Grill in Goleta here. So it's
Are they going to honor you?
I don't think so.
We should have them honor you.
Actually, humorously enough, I think there was a misunderstanding. So there's like a past president's award, and I thought it was an award you give to the past president. So I printed a plaque with his name on it. And I think he told me that it was a president award he was supposed to give, and he was going to give it to me. And it was just so awkward to coordinate it because I was the person who's going to have to make the plaque. And we just kind of messed that up. So we never even gave him the plaque because, of course, he wasn't. So I now just have his plaque. That's too cute.
Yeah, we'll scratch his name out and put yours.
Yeah.
Okay, any other reports from board members? Director Siebel.
Okay, I don't know if it's a report, but I think next year when thinking of Deltopia, we need to think about like refocusing if we can get trash collection to happen the day after, because I know that my Sunday morning, like my house was a mess. And when I threw out my trash can and my like unit's trash things, we have 5 bins. All of them were filled to the top, spilling out all over the place. Every single yard in Ivy was the same. So I don't know how that happens, but having trash day on Friday and Deltopia on Saturday is like terrible planning.
It is a great point, and we witnessed it when we were out there picking up trash on Sunday as well.
It is good that it comes Friday though, too, I will say, because like even
Empty
here,
out.
like we fill them up again, so like it probably should happen both.
Great point. My report is I attended the Narcan distribution that we co-hosted with the second district office and associated students. It was very well attended. And we got, I want to say like 900 units of Narcan out there. And it was very gratifying that we went another year without a drug overdose. So happy to be a part of that. And then looking forward to this week, there is going to be a town hall on Friday at 11 a.m. that Supervisor Capps is hosting about the housing projects that we got a little bit of a report about at the last meeting. So if directors are interested and able in attending, that is going to happen at the Isla Vista Community Center this Friday at 11 a.m. There's going to be a groundbreaking for IVRPD's Hardall Gardens. And that is going to be on the same day, April 11th at 9:30 a.m., I believe. So I'll be there to celebrate our neighbors. And no, I think that's it. Any other reports? Okay, standing and ad hoc committee reports. I don't think we've had any committee action. Report from district council. Thank you for joining us in person.
Nice to see you all. Nothing to report.
All right.
Wouldn't there be potentially a report that either of us, I'm going to just point to you, we give on from the ad hoc, or I guess that wouldn't be from the ad hoc, but it will just report on the meeting we went to.
The planning commission.
Planning commission meeting. If we're a committee report, I guess we meet, but you were at the meeting.
Yeah, I'll give a brief report. So myself and Director Freeman both spoke at the County Planning Commission hearing about the project, the Mission Isla Vista project, which is at 6737 Sueño Road. It is a 45 bedroom apartment project with about, I think it's 20 parking spaces. And so there were a lot of our neighbors were there with concerns about the transportation and parking impacts of the projects. I spoke about the list of mitigations that our board approved at our last meeting. And I was heartened to hear that the planning staff had actually pre-shared that list of mitigations with the developer, and they kind of went through a number of them. So anyways, the result of the hearing though was that the project was approved 3-2 at the planning commission and is pending potential appeals to the board of supervisors. Anything else you want to add, Director Freeman?
No, the lot of the focus of a lot of the comments is to try to demonstrate the public, the specific harm to the public health or safety that could be caused by things. And there were there's very specifically there were two of the planning commissioners who seemed to really get it and were really on the side. One was just really interested in helping Isla Vista and helping this thing. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Okay.
My brain is fading.
Report from general manager.
No report since last week, but we had a great spring festival. So just double that down.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love to hear it. Yeah, I think we've said it a lot, but just excellent works to everyone on the team. What a production. It was really cool to witness. Okay, we are now going to move to closed session. 1.1 General Manager Annual Performance and Salary Review. For Section 6.2 of the General Manager's Contract, the board shall conduct a performance and salary review annually, authorized under Government Code 54957B1. So with that, we are adjourned to closed session. We will reconvene in a number of minutes. I don't know.
You should also know Jonathan did a lot of heavy lifting on Saturday.
Yeah.
Brought the muscle, so
Yeah.
that's his review.
And shout out to
I have a question.
It's in. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, we are reconvening from closed session. Council, can you read us out?
Yes. So the board met in closed session under item 6.1.1, general manager annual performance and salary review. Per section 6.2 of the general manager's contract, the board shall conduct a performance and salary review annually pursuant to government code section 54957B1. A discussion was had and direction was given to the district council. No reportable action was taken.
Thank you, council. Future meeting dates and agenda items. The next meeting of the board of directors will take place on April 22nd, 2025 at 6 p.m. That is Earth Day. Any future agenda item mentions?
I'm pulling up the list right now. We'll have annual reports for more programs. The MTD will come to give their update of their service changes for the next year, which they do every year in April.
That
And
includes maybe an announcement about the wave.
I'm not allowed to talk about that
Okay.
right now, but yes, most likely.
Way to go.
Yeah.
I had to open my big mouth. Okay, thank you, Jonathan. With that, we are adjourned.
Okay.